Unless Jeremy Renner just doesn't want to be in superhero movies anymore, in
Well,
which case
no.
recast him because he has an ugly face anyways.
Whatever. Jeremy Renner's a good-looking dude.
No, he is not.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Renner's a good-looking dude.
As the gay guy in the room, I can say I think he's hideous.
As the unbelievably straight guy, I think Jeremy Renner is a good-looking jerk.
I'm a less biased source.
Actually, let me look him up. Maybe. No, Jeremy Renner's a good-looking guy.
I think he has his face is too
No, that's a good-looking dude.
That's a good picture of him.
Okay. Okay.
Say that. This is Twin Stick Radio, episode 51 for the week of January 8th, 2019. I'm one of your hosts, Trey Higgins, and I'm joined by Chris Rodriguez.
Hello.
And we have Everett Jordan on mic just in case we need someone else's opinion on something.
Yeah, that's right. Don't worry about me.
Don't. It's not actually. Justin's off.
We've officially killed Justin.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Here's
we
our confession.
We snapped him away, except it included us putting him in a furnace.
Yep.
It was a lot less elegant. There was a lot of screaming.
Yeah.
So,
But
boy, was it tasty.
But the
visual effect was just
I mean the outcome was the same. Dust.
Yeah, dust.
Yeah.
Now we just need to wait for the Avengers to save the universe and bring him back.
Yeah, I am planning on taking his ashes to ZDTs and spreading them over the parking lot at ZDTs.
What if, I swear to God, let me just say this now, because chances are I'm probably going to die before all of you guys. If I die and you spread my ashes in the parking lot of an Alamo Draft House, I will haunt your ass.
What about in Alamo Draft House?
Nowhere. I want at least a 30-mile radius from the nearest Alamo Draft House.
Well, by the time you die, maybe there's no such thing as a 30-mile radius from the nearest draft house. Maybe
Because
they
now
take
we're
maybe
using
they take over
kilometers.
Maybe they took over the world.
Every place is an Alamo Draft House.
There's at least an Alamo Draft House 20 minutes away from you, from anywhere you are.
You go to the doctor and sit down, and the server comes up and takes your order.
I am excited. I've been watching Marvel movies on Netflix, the ones that are on Netflix. So I literally just watched Infinity War for the first time, however many days ago, this past weekend. And it's really fucking good. Black Panther was good. I don't think it's as good as everybody said it was, but it's good. And I'm on to Ragnarok next. And then I think I've seen everything.
Except for Homecoming.
Except for Homecoming and except for Ant-Man and Wasp. Is that out?
Yeah.
Is
I
Ant-Man
don't think
and
it's
Wasp?
streaming anyway.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's
But
streaming.
it's out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the only other one I haven't seen is Ant-Man and Wasp. But other than that, I'm caught up on Marvel movies, so I'm pretty excited about that. However,
Contribute to our Twin Stick Radio 4.0 Patreon, and maybe we will have our own.
yeah, there you go. But it makes me Infinity War. I loved Infinity War. I told Trey I had the biggest 5-year-old giddy kid smile on my face every single time a group of the heroes met up in any way, shape, or form. Even the fight on Titan, when Tony and Peter met up with the Guardians, that whole fight sequence that they don't know who each other are. You know what I'm talking about? I was grinning like a fucking,
Isn't it
just a cheesy little kid?
You know, the funny
whole
thing about
time.
the funny thing about the Guardians is they really play up Drax super hard in this movie, as sort of like the comic relief, and he does an amazing job at it.
Because he's great at it. Dave Bautista is a great fucking actor, man.
Well, it's not, but it's one of those things where you have this serious world where there are a lot of serious characters, and it's a lot different than the way that they kind of set things up in Guardians.
Yeah.
So the fact that they can pull Drax off, I think comes down to Bautista, but I also think that it comes down to just really good writing on the brothers' part.
Well,
because I think it could have been really easy to make him just too ridiculous.
Well, it's a weird dichotomy because, Rocket and Groot were the original comic relief.
Yeah.
And somehow, in Avengers, in Infinity War and Guardians 2, Rocket and Groot, I mean, I think Rocket's always sometimes funny, but he wasn't anywhere near as funny as he was in the first one. With the exception of the baby Groot Rocket. It's like, don't press the button, right? That whole scene was really good. But Drax was the funniest thing in Galaxy 2 and out of the Guardians in Infinity War. That scene where he's like, I'm not moving and I've mastered the art of stealth by standing still.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we can still see you. And he's like, moving his arm. It's like, you can't even see me moving my arm to eat these chips. It's like, that whole scene was really funny. And, Rocket and Groot weren't funny in Infinity War. They were pretty damn serious, that whole movie. Mainly because teenage Groot. But
also, I think that because Drax was pretty funny in the first one, but he wasn't Rocket or Groot.
No,
but
absolutely not.
I think they needed to make that switch in Guardians too, because really Rocket's he's a really tragic character.
Sure.
And the fact that they played that up and made it work, I think it's a little sad that James Gunn isn't directing those movies anymore, because I think a lot of that had to do with him. I don't know who wrote the movies, but I think a lot of that had to do with him. But at the same time, I like how, I don't know, I've always loved the Guardians, because when I started reading comics, I was reading Green Lantern and then Nova and then all of the cosmic stuff.
Sure,
so
yeah.
Guardians got brought in naturally. So the fact that they can make those characters work on screen is great.
Sure, yeah.
And even just, I don't necessarily like funny Drax over the comic book Drax.
I do. I think it's better because he still has that serious side of I need to avenge my family, and I'll fuck up plans to do it.
Yeah, I kind of like this. Drax in the comics is the best version of Wolverine, because he is actually he has reasons to be so fucked up.
Sure, I guess. I mean, Logan does too, but it's just not very good.
But in defense of the movies, there are way too many characters that are kind of like that overly serious type. So
Sure.
They kind of needed to make that change with Drax,
Sure,
or he
yeah,
would just
yeah.
be boring as
That's true.
as hell.
Anyway, all that to say, I'm really excited for the next, I guess, 2.5 months, 3 months, because March is Marvel.
Yep.
Captain Marvel, and then Infinity War is the next month. So, I mean, Endgame's the next month. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I don't know if I'll see him in the theaters because I don't like theaters. I might see Endgame in the theaters.
The cool thing about the Marvel movies is we keep them, or well, at least
You
at
keep them
Draft
for a
House,
while,
We keep
sure.
them for so long, so by
Yeah.
the time you get to I don't know, I guess June or July,
Sure.
there's no one watching those movies.
Yeah, that's true. But I just don't like theater. I think most people who still listen to this is the only time I go to a movie theater opening weekend is Star Wars, which we have a Star Wars this year. So
you didn't even go opening weekend. For
Yeah, we
Last
did.
Jedi.
Yeah, we
You
did.
Went, you went the week after.
No, we went like 4 days after the Friday. We went on a Tuesday at
Yeah.
1:00. So you're right. It wasn't opening weekend, but it was
I'm
still.
just-
that's
not
sure.
to, that's not to just prove your
Sure,
Star Wars
yeah.
fandom. That's to prove how much you hate. fucking
Right.
movie
It was
theaters.
it was in the week,
And even then, I remember you saying to me, "You're like, I don't think we're gonna go see it when it's in theaters."
Yeah,
And then finally, you had to give in because I would not talk to you about it.
and so I'll do the same thing with this. I'll wait till like the next Tuesday when everybody's working and go at 11:00.
Yeah.
But we have a Star Wars this year. We have another Star Wars that's not fucking Solo.
I know.
We have an actual Star Wars movie.
It's
this
in
year,
December, so it still feels really
Sure.
far away.
but it's a Star Wars movie.
I know. I wish they would. I don't know why they released Solo in May, but I wish they would have just started going with the May dates.
Did they? Did they? I don't remember how they did Rogue One or Solo.
Rogue One was in December.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did they? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars. No,
they
didn't
did.
do that.
I
did
think they did a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then it split. It cuts to like the first scene.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember the I never saw Solo, and I don't care to see. So I will watch Solo just for the whole the ending
actually-
stuff.
You know what? Now that you're saying that, though, I feel like I remember an opening crawl for Solo.
But was it like was it the Star Wars theme? Did it say Lucasfilm, and then did it say like?
I don't remember.
Because I get choked up every time that comes up on screen. But I didn't in Rogue One, and I know I wouldn't in Solo because it's not. It's not. I don't know. I know there's Star Wars.
Solo
but
gets
it's
a
not,
bad rap, but I think Solo's biggest issue was it came out too close to Last Jedi, which people hate for bad reasons because they don't like good movies.
It's very true.
I still stand by that. It's one of those things where history is going to prove all of us wrong.
Sure.
Because that was exactly what happened when Empire came out. Everyone hated it. And now 40 years later, we think it's one of the best movies ever made as a culture. I really think 40 years from now, I will be in my rocking chair. Actually, I'll only be 60. Actually, I'll be almost 7. No, I'll be 65. I'll be in my rocking chair, and everyone will be like, Last Jedi is the best movie ever made. And I was like, I knew that 40 years ago.
It's very true. Do you not like Last Jedi?
Nah, I was just bored
Oh,
the entire time.
great! Really?
I
Yeah.
don't understand that.
I don't understand that either. I was watching Last Jedi the other day, and
I'm just going to chalk that up to Everett
I
not
didn't
being
like
a
the
big Star
first.
Wars fan.
I didn't like the other movie either.
I can understand why people didn't like Force Awakens because it really was like a rehash of A New Hope.
I mean, because we had a debate on the podcast for 3 years.
Sure, yeah, I get it. I still think Force Awakens is my number 3 of all time.
I think Last Jedi fixes Force Awakens for me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And Force Awakens, like I said, is number 3 or 4 of all time for me. I would say 4 actually. But I still think it's fucking amazing. Star Wars, Everett.
It's hard for me to enjoy movies because I just feel like it was like a project so big It's almost like you can see the exasperation on everyone's faces. They're like, I can't believe I'm in a Star Wars movie right now, you know?
So that's a victim of this. So that's a
It just brings me out of the movies. I'm just like,
I guess.
You know what? But you're not wrong. Like now that you say that, like it doesn't ruin the movies for me at all. But there is always like kind of that moment on screen where you see an actor, and it's sort of like you and the actor are both realizing at the same time, like, oh, this person's in a Star Wars movie.
yeah, exactly.
I get that. It's like that one chick. I totally don't know her name, but the one that plays like the Asian chick that's Finn's companion.
Oh, Rosemary something.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, Rose is her name in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know her name in real life.
But there's that moment where you first see Rose where, like, I don't know, it does that with, like, every kind of new character that's important where the camera, like, lingers for us a little bit too long. And it's like, this person's in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a bunch of different types of Star Wars fans. You know what I mean? There's the Star Wars fans that say episode 1, 2, and 3 are the shit stain of Star Wars. And that doesn't mean they're not Star Wars fans, but then there's Star Wars fans like Trey and I who, man, I love episode 1, 2, and 3. I would put those above a lot of movies that have ever come out in my book. I think they're fucking awesome. Is Jar Jar annoying? Sure, but I still think they're fucking great movies. Fucking episode 3 is literally number 3 on my list of Star Wars movies of all time. I think that movie is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's episode 3 is another one of those things where it's like, I don't understand how people
Don't
can
like
watch
it.
that movie and not love it.
Sure. And so it's just weird. I think there's there's a bunch of different types of Star Wars fans, but those are your two ones. It's like the people that hated episode 1, 2, and 3 are also the people that think Last Jedi is the worst movie ever made.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you have this side where I feel like if you sit down and you call yourself a Star Wars fan, you own every book since 1980 fucking 3, and you have fucking Black Series figures lining your wall. You've played every game. You have every collector's edition. You still subscribe to the online multiplayer game, a SWOTOR. You do everything Star Wars, and you still love these movies. Like, to me, maybe that's a jaded fan. Maybe I'm a jaded Star Wars fan.
I watched a video on YouTube, though, where someone was talking about the Star Wars fan problem, and they basically assert something that we've asserted before, where it's like the majority of the people that call themselves Star Wars fans are not actual Star Wars fans. They're fans of the original trilogy.
Sure.
And they talked about how basically every time there's a new trilogy, these Star Wars fans, in quotes, come out and try ruin the new trilogy because it's different from the old one. And they say they're Star Wars fans, they say they want new Star Wars movies, but really what they want is a rehash of the original trilogy.
Original shit.
And when they don't get that, they throw a fit and try to ruin it for every next generation of Star Wars.
Sure.
Because, for me, and actually probably you to a certain degree, like, we were both born after the original trilogy was over. So
I was born the year Jedi came out.
So I would still count that as being
Sure.
born after, right?
Yeah.
Because as a toddler, you weren't.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm
You're
not a
right.
toddler. As
No,
a baby.
No, you're right. No,
But,
but
like-
actually, I was born 2 years before Jedi because it was 77, 81, and 83.
I thought the first one came out in 79.
No, 77. Star Wars: A New
77.
Hope was 77,
Okay.
and I think Jedi
sounds
was
right.
either 83 or 85. Anyway, I was
Was
born.
it,
I was born.
Was
in
it really
83.
that far? I thought it was 81.
No, I'm pretty. That might have been Empire. I think.
Look it up while I
Yeah,
make my
cool,
point.
yeah, that's right.
But I can't believe that would have been 4 years between the first movie and the second movie. But hey, it's possible.
Return of the Jedi is 1983, so I was
83.
born the year Jedi came out.
Okay, cool. But anyway, so the idea. So I would say that the prequels are kind of our generation of Star Wars.
Sure.
So these old fans come out and destroy it, not necessarily because they're bad movies, not to say that the prequels are perfect, because they're not. But they come out and destroy this generation of movies, of Star Wars movies, because it's not what they want.
Sure.
And so it's never about whether or not these films are actually good or if they hold up compared to other films of the time.
Because Last Jedi is literally a phenomenally shot and acted film.
Well, I mean, The Last Jedi, and I mean this unironically, and every time I say this, people take it as a joke, but Last Jedi is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, hands down.
I'd never had that experience of watching my favorite movie in a theater or watching my favorite movie for the first time because I don't remember the first time I saw Empire. So that whole movie experience was transformative to me. And I remember leaving that, and I had work at the shop the next day. I had talked to you a little bit. I didn't tell you anything. And then I think we recorded the podcast because it was a Thursday after the movie came out.
Yep.
And I remember saying, like, this movie is going to change the world. like, because I legitimately could not see anyone hating it.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back to these Star Wars fans that just want the original trilogy over and over again. And
Sure.
it ruins these movies. Like, they don't have a chance because the fans that already have their own preconceived notions about what they're supposed to be.
Sure.
And, you know, and to be fair, like, as someone who had read all the books, comics, TV shows, video games, done all that stuff, that was a big reason why I didn't like Force Awakens.
Because it was a rehash.
Because it was a rehash.
Yeah.
And had Last Jedi kept going with that sort of theme of just rehashing movies we've already seen, I probably wouldn't have liked it either because I wanted change.
Sure.
So it's just, all this is just
Yeah, and
interesting
see,
to
and
think
that's the
about.
thing. Like with Last Jedi, we can move on to the actual video game news at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But
What
like,
video game news?
yeah, seriously,
Aren't we a movie podcast now?
yeah. But the Last Jedi, to me, it was everything. Again, I'm going to say this, and it may offend people, but a real Star Wars fan wants. It was literally everything that it showed. It showed the fucking legacy of the Skywalkers. Like people give the scene where Leia basically pulls herself back into the fucking ship after being blown out into space. But it's like, you don't understand. You don't understand how powerful the Skywalker legacy actually is. You don't get it. And if you did get it, you would understand why that scene actually exists. You know, this Anakin was born from the fucking Force. He's Jesus. Okay, you're telling me that his daughter isn't going to be able to survive in space for 5 seconds? Give me
Sister.
Sister, sorry. No, it's daughter. No, it's
Anakin,
Anakin's
daughter.
daughter. Leia's
Oh,
Anakin's
Anakin.
daughter.
Okay. Sorry.
You're fucking telling me she's not going to be able to
This is why we
manipulate.
don't put you on mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Star Wars. What's that?
Yeah, well, but
I love Star Trek Wars.
That scene, the scene where, oh my God, I still get goosebumps even thinking about it and watching it. Luke is fucking force projecting himself the entire last half of the movie, or the last part of the movie.
And doing so, he knows is erasing himself from the material world.
Exactly, and it's just like,
He's sacrificing himself
how
to
do you,
save everyone, which everyone's like, well, Luke wouldn't be this big whiny baby in that movie. Of course he would.
Of course he would. He's been a fucking whiny baby since A New Hope.
He's always been a whiny baby. Just because the books
is-
made him this all-powerful Jedi doesn't change the fact that he was a whiny baby since
He
the
is
beginning.
a fucking mirror of his dad to a fucking T.
In fact, the fucking Last Jedi version of Luke is more realistic than the
100%.
Legacy of the Force version of Luke.
100%.
It is more in character.
Well,
so
I think Last Jedi Luke is more in turn with like Thrawn Luke. Where Luke is at,
but
but
you know, you get to Legacy of the Force Luke,
where
who
he's
is
just
like,
oh yeah,
he's basically like Yoda and Obi-Wan had a baby.
Well, he's Thanos.
Yeah.
Fucking
So-
Legacy Luke is basically Thanos.
So the fact that he gives up his material self, kills himself,
Sure.
to save his sister and his apprentice, basically.
Well, and who he still has no fucking clue. Well, maybe he does now, but he has no fucking clue who this girl is. He
yeah,
literally
yeah.
risked his life to save her.
Yeah, just some random girl that he spent like a
Yeah.
week with. But the fact that he did that is a perfect character closure for him.
Sure.
Because it's the first time, really, sorry everyone, it's the first time that we've really seen a truly selfless Luke.
Yep.
Because a truly selfless Luke wouldn't have left Dagobah. A truly selfless Luke wouldn't have thrown himself on the Death Star.
Yep.
That wasn't selfless. That was completely selfish. It's the first time we see a selfless character who's actually learned something. And everyone's like, well, that's not Luke. Of course it's Luke.
Yep.
Ugh.
I 100% agree. And the idea of I don't know if this is a bad thing, and I don't know how people think about this because I stopped reading deeper into this stuff. But I love the idea that they're playing with the balance between light and dark, right? Where Luke says it in the movie, one can't exist without the other. It's no longer this Jedi. He even calls a Jedi a religion, which, man, again, goosebumps every time I hear Luke say Jedi's a religion, because that's what it is. It's not it's not an academy. It's not a freaking learning. It's literally a cult.
It's not like a monastery.
Yeah, it's literally a cult. The Jedi are literally occultists. And, you know, when Luke calls it a religion and then starts teaching Rey and telling Rey, it's like, listen, they were wrong. You know, the dark side was wrong. And it's very apparent in this, what was that island called? Whatever that island was called with the Jedi Temple. The symbol in the middle of the temple where Luke is force projecting has that whole, you know, light, dark side of things.
Yeah.
Where they're starting to bring in the idea that the Force is more than just Jedi versus Sith or light versus dark. And, you know, they did that with Kylo. I see people complain all the time. It's like Kylo Ren is so convoluted and he's not consistent. He's like, that's the whole point. The whole point of Kylo Ren is not to be consistent because he's got this thing in him that is pulling against his other thing. If you're of two minds of one thing, you're never going to be consistent. And that's Kylo to a T. It's like you can't complain about good character development. You know what I mean? Where Rey's kind of the same way. It's like now you introduce Rey to this dark side pit thingy, whatever it is. And now she's going off. It's like, oh, I get it. I understand this dark side pull, but I still want to do the right thing. It's like you've got, I don't know. I just don't fucking get it.
I mean, I don't either. But that's
That's called good. That's called good shit.
I don't know.
Is Ryan Johnson doing episode 9?
I think he is.
Thank God.
No. I think JJ Abrams is, and Ryan Johnson is working on the next trilogy.
Okay.
I think that's what
I think
it is.
JJ will do a good job. I love his Star Trek movies. Did he do episode 7?
Here's what I hope doesn't happen.
Did JJ do episode 7?
yeah.
Okay.
I just hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't renege on the things that Ryan Johnson fixed from his first movie.
Sure.
Because I could very much see JJ being like, "That's not how I envisioned Rey's parents being handled." Anyway, we're a podcast about video games. We record weekly. We're up on Wednesdays, and we start the show every week with the same segment. Let's talk about what we've been playing, and I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is going to be a very long conversation. Also, I have not really seen you play video
Is
games
it?
at all. Yeah, I finally finished Red Dead.
Oh, hey, look at you.
Yeah. So
Justin's never going to finish Red Dead.
never gonna. He hates it. He said it on the last podcast.
Now's the time to spoil everything since he's not here.
That's
True. I mean, like, spoiler alert. If you haven't
we're
spoiled yet.
way we're way
No, we're not.
past
It's
that.
really only been 2 months.
It's been since October, the end of October.
Yeah. So the end of October, November, December.
If you haven't had 2 months to finish, you have 2 months to finish Red Dead Redemption.
Dude, I still haven't finished GTA 5, and I've started that game so many times. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
GTA 5 isn't an impactful story.
so yeah, finished the epilogue. I still stand by the fact that the epilogue was not needed. It was not a requirement for that game, and had it been DLC, I would have been perfectly fine. I will say, though, one of my pleasant surprises about the epilogue was the fact that maybe with the exception of Chapter 3, because Chapter 3 is when they get to Saint Denis, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe with the exception of Chapter 3, the epilogue may be one of the, if not the longest chapters in the game. It took me a really long time, and I played straight through it. I did not dilly-dally at all. I didn't even change John's clothes.
I did.
I just went straight through it. I think I took him to the barber like twice just because his beard and hair were getting out of control. But it was long, and it felt meaty. It didn't feel like something that was just tacked on to the end
Sure.
for the sake of it being there.
Sure.
Another thing that I loved about it was just sort of like the family and farmstead stuff. In fact, to a certain degree, I'm going to say this. I think that you pull your gun too much in the epilogue. I know you have to because the average gamer is going to get bored with the fact that they're not shooting at something.
Sure.
But in a perfect world where gamers were patient and actually appreciated good art, and I think Rockstar probably feels this way too. I bet if I asked the Hauser brothers, they would agree with me. It would have been better if he had pulled his gun maybe 50% less than he does.
Sure.
I think that there should have been more focus on the building the homestead and the family stuff, but I get why it's not there. I think that was very intentional of them to not bore players. But the best parts of that is like the montage when you're hammering the nails and building the house and all that.
To the beat of the song.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. It's watching the house go up and sort of seeing this relationship build between Charles, John, and Uncle. John goes from absolutely hating Uncle to saving his life and defending him from Abigail later. That's all beautiful stuff. And honestly, like you get some of the best character relationship stuff happens in the epilogue as well.
Oh, 100%.
I think the fact that you have time to breathe and you give people time to sort of like talk and be around each other, you don't necessarily get that as much, with the exception of specific characters during the actual game,
I mean, you do. It's just a matter of how much time you want to put into it, right? That all happens at the camp. But there's so much happening around you from chapters 1 through 6 that it's like you know, it's easy to not care about the people inside the camp. It's easy just to keep going, right? Just, I need to do this, and shit, I found the legendary deer. Let's go do that. And before you know it, you've forgot to talk to Javier for the 19th time.
Well, and I feel like I hit the majority of that stuff. You know, I feel like I didn't miss that, but I feel like there's also like a really big bias towards putting Arthur in places with John, Dutch, Charles. I don't actually think he gets enough time with Sadie. I think John gets way more time with Sadie.
I think Arthur gets more than enough time with Sadie, especially when when he gets back from being captured, and the first thing he has to do is basically save Sadie's life.
You know what? That's true. That in the end of the game, he does get some good time with
Yeah.
Sadie.
Breaking John out of the
name
prison.
What's the name of the other older guy that was sort of the father?
What?
The other guy that was like Dutch's best friend.
Hosea.
Hosea. You get some time with Hosea, but like characters like Javier and Bill and Micah to a certain degree. Micah, you get stuff later on in
Sure.
the game, but like those are characters that kind of get forgotten about. In fact, like I really wish you had spent more time with Javier, because I think Javier is a really interesting character. And at the end of the game, when he sort of like plants his flag on the side of Micah in Dutch, it almost doesn't make sense to me.
Sure. So my counterpoint there is I don't think you needed more time with Javier and Bill, because in Red Dead 1, those are the two guys you go and kill.
Yeah, but
Those
I
are the
don't.
two guys that you go hunt down.
I don't think.
I would have felt
Controversial opinion. I watched the scenes with Bill and Javier after I finished the game, and really, those two characters get absolutely nothing in terms of characterization in those games. They are targets, and they're treated like targets.
sure, which is why I think giving them characterization in this one would have made, at least from a storytelling perspective, not a whole lot of sense. Because then why, as a player, would you want to go kill Bill and Javier if you cared about them? Like you cared about Charles or Sadie.
To be fair, if you're playing the games in the order that they're meant to be played,
Sure, of course.
you don't really have a choice.
Of
in
course.
that. But
But
I, don't know.
I think from a storytelling perspective, I think, like, you know, I know you're John, not Arthur, but if you give Bill and Javier too much of a character to where it's like, oh, I care about these two guys, then, you know, the impact of John going and killing them is kind of,
I mean, but that's the weird balance though, because I don't necessarily think that, like, maybe Bill's kind of a dickhead, but I don't know, with Bill and Javier though, like I don't necessarily feel like John, by the way that he finishes that game, I don't necessarily think that he would have a reason to, like, I actually, because I think with both Will and Javier, because I'm sorry, Bill runs away, you follow him to Mexico, and then you catch him and Javier together, and you have a choice to, like, either save them or kill them. I think that based off of just the way that Red Dead 2 plays out, I don't think that John has a reason to kill them. I think it sort of forces you in one sort of camp.
sure.
But I don't necessarily see the negative things that John kind of points out about those characters in Red Dead 2. I don't know. It's complicated, because I see where I guess I understand your argument.
yeah.
But also, like, I think that Javier and Bill, like, as you know, 3 of the surviving members that you have to hunt down in Red Dead 1, I would have liked to have a little bit more time with them just to sort of figure them out.
Sure.
Because Javier, like, early in the game, this is going to sound racist. I don't mean this racist. Early in the game, like, I was constantly getting, this changes by, like, the end of chapter 1 after you have that buffalo scene with Charles. But I was having a hard time, like, telling Javier and Charles apart from characters. Like, I knew that they looked, I knew how they looked and, like, where they, like, fell, but I couldn't tell, like, what is the difference between these two characters?
Sure.
It seems like they fill the same purpose. Then you do the buffalo hunting scene with Charles, and you're like, oh no, I get it. I get why Charles is different than Javier. I don't know. But anyway, going back to the epilogue, I do think, again, all this stuff is a great game. A great, amazing game. If I had to put a score on it, I would probably give it a 9.5. I still stand by the fact, that this wasn't needed, but I also kind of felt like, and you're going to disagree with me with this, I know it, which is why I haven't talked to you about this yet. The ending scene with Micah and Dutch was just not satisfying for me.
Yeah, well, it would have been a lot more satisfying if Dutch wasn't there.
That, Yes, Dutch did not need to be there.
100%.
And when
I still don't know. I still can't put my finger on why Dutch was there.
it doesn't make sense to me. Oh my God! Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I don't. It was, at least to me, it was insanely apparent that Dutch, at the very end of the game, Dutch knew Micah was full of shit.
And he hated him.
And he hated him. He, whether you want to see this or not, Dutch leaving Arthur there to die on that mountain was probably one of the hardest things Dutch could have possibly done. And I could tell that. I think a lot of people are like, oh, he's a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. But I could tell that was literally one of the hardest things Dutch has ever had to do. But he did it without remorse because that's who Dutch is. But you could easily tell that he knew Micah was a giant piece of shit and that he betrayed the entire party. So why the hell was he with Micah in the end?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
And then my big problem is that you put him there. Fine. I mean, you can maybe play off because, at no point does Dutch actually say you're a piece of shit, Micah. He just walks away from Micah.
Sure.
Right? So you can easily say that, like, oh, maybe Dutch fell in with this gang because he had nowhere else to go, blah, 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 whatever. But Dutch maybe has like 3 lines of dialogue. And I'm sorry, like, as the person that loves to hear people talk about their feelings all the time, the fact that, like, none of that really gets explored.
Yep.
You have like these moments where John's like, please say something, or just why
Yep.
are you doing this? Like,
Yep.
don't betray us. The fact, like, but Dutch never says anything back. Dutch has a really good line in that scene where he's like, please say something. And Dutch goes, I don't have much more to say anymore.
Right.
And that was great. But, like, there is no... You present this possibility for there to actually be a moment for Dutch to kind of just monologue for a bit.
Sure,
to
almost
maybe, like, show his side.
almost a redemptive moment to make because if the interactions with Dutch in Red Dead 1 are really good. When John finally finds Dutch in Red Dead 1, Dutch kills an innocent banker woman just to get away.
Yeah.
And it shows just how desperate Dutch has gotten.
Yeah.
To where he has this whole new gang with these Indian guys, these Native Americans, and he's trying to make this new thing and a new plan, and he's so desperate to succeed in Red Dead 1 that he's making mistake after mistake after mistake, and John's right there on his tail. This was a perfect way to set up, like, we've already seen Dutch in his downward spiral. Let this be his first sort of redemptive quality leading into that. Leading into Red Dead 1 Dutch.
Because sending John after Dutch should be a hard thing for John.
It should be super hard for John.
But the way that game ends, there is no redemptive quality towards Dutch at all.
No.
You can justify one. You can explain yourself around one. But at no point does Dutch ever get to say his thoughts on the things that are happening.
Yeah.
And so that leaves every other character to sit there and speculate about him.
Yeah, I think. Well, shit. I think the only thing I can think of now that I'm replaying the scene in my head more, the only like reason I can think Dutch of being there was because it's very much a possibility that if Dutch wasn't there, they would have lost that fight with Micah.
Yeah, but this comes back to, like, that goes back to the whole thing of, like, you just need to write it differently.
You're 100% correct.
Because there's, like, that moment where Sadie's about to die and
Yeah.
Charles comes out of nowhere and blows the guy's head off.
Yeah.
If Charles hadn't been there, Sadie would have died. But they wrote a reason for Sadie to live.
Yeah. I don't. That's the only thing I can think of. But even that, like you said, from a writing perspective, that theory doesn't make sense.
I think it's just I think I think Rockstar loves Dutch as much as the rest of us do.
They just want him in everything.
I think that was the point. I think they kind of just wanted him there, or I think they felt like he had to be there for the conclusion, and it's like,
But he didn't.
he didn't, because he wasn't the villain.
Right.
I mean, he is a villain. He's a antagonist. Maybe that's a better word for it.
Sure.
He's an antagonist, but really, like, for me, what I was looking for, the absolution that I needed from that scene was taking down Micah. That's all I needed as a player.
Sure.
Was for Micah to be dead.
Sure.
I didn't need that scene with Dutch. So it's almost like they were, like, overreaching to sort of give some sort of closure that they couldn't commit
Yeah,
to.
maybe,
I don't know.
and the problem there too is the only redemptive thing there, and it was kind of redemptive for Dutch. Dutch took the shot on Micah, which let John take the shot on Micah and end the whole thing. Dutch also left all the money to John, Everything that he and Micah had gone back to Blackwater for, and he left it all to John.
I will say that doesn't make any sense.
It does from a redemptive quality. It's like maybe that was Dutch saying
that felt so forced though.
Sure, I agree. That
felt so forced.
I 100% agree.
At no point leading up to that moment did Dutch have a reason to give the money.
I 100% agree with you, but looking at it from a couple different angles, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
I don't think your Dutch not being in that scene would have made it just as good and probably even more impactful because John would have been the one to finish off Micah. And then Micah had all the money. John took all the money, and it's happy, happy day. We're done. Let's get married. Sadie becomes a bounty hunter. Charles moves to Canada. We're all good.
Yeah, because, I mean, that whole now that I'm thinking about it, if Dutch had just taken that money, he would have been in Tahiti.
Yep.
That it absolutely, I can't justify a reason for
100%
for
because if Dutch
John
would
to
have
get that money,
and if Dutch would have taken the money, Red Dead 1 wouldn't exist because there's no reason for Dutch to start a whole new gang.
I mean, I think John still would have been sent after Bill and Javier.
Sure, but that's not a good.
That's not a good game.
Exactly. Game would have been over in 20 hours.
But had Dutch not been there at all, it would have made sense for John to get the money.
100%. It would have made a lot more sense.
This is really frustrating me now.
Yeah, it's. I was frustrated. I love Dutch as a character.
Yeah.
And I was ecstatic to see full bearded Dutch because he looked badass.
I feel like I could put a beard on anything and he would say it looks cooler.
But I feel the exact same way as you do, dude. He didn't need to be there. I'm to an extent, I'm glad he's there because it's more Dutch, but it was weird and he didn't need to be there. So I agree with you.
Yeah, all this is to say that if I can take 1% of the story, 'cause that's really what that is.
Sure.
That's 1% of the entire story. And maybe if you add up all my individual problems, it probably goes up to like 5 or 6% of the story.
Sure.
If I can take all that and say like, these are my issues with the story, but still 95% of it is awesome.
Yep.
Then really I come out the other side winning.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
I don't think that the end of that game ruins it at all.
No,
it seems sloppy. And there's a couple things in the epilogue that seem sloppy.
I think the things that seem sloppy in the epilogue are things like, they're throwbacks that are trying to be forced into the player's hand to give it that nostalgia thing, right? Because the epilogue's filled with nostalgia from the beginning of it, especially when Abigail leaves the first time, right? They're on the little ranch and Abigail gets the shirt for John and John's all pissed off because she used her real name and she leaves with the boy. She leaves with Jack and John,
That was her fucking fault though.
Yeah. John calms down and he takes out and he has that cowboy moment where like there's like a twangy song playing in the background and John puts on the cowboy suit for the first time and he walks out the door and he's John Marston from Red Dead 1. Like those are really cool nostalgia moments, but it slows down the game too much. You know what I mean?
That wasn't my issue. It more felt like there were dialogue things that seemed like they were supposed to be ambient dialogue. Like for example, John meets Sadie. John and Sadie go and do their bounty
stuff. Yeah.
And then John comes back to the farm and works on the farm. Well, the game assumes that I'm going to go do some more bounties, but I don't because I'm trying to just play through the epilogue and get it done. So there's a moment later where John's riding with Sadie and he's like, yeah, so I've been doing some of those bounties by myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's multiple times like that. I can't think of the other instances. That's the one that stands out the most. There's a couple times like that where John says he's been doing something that me and John have not been doing.
Sure.
And so it makes me think that like in the times, is this just a mistake? Like, is this an oversight? Or did the beginning of Red Dead just assume that I was going to do all the things that Arthur said I did? Because I did do those. I had never noticed that before that point.
Yeah, there's little things like that kind of, I don't know the right word.
Break the immersion.
Yeah, break the immersion. But I think other than chapter 6 and chapter 3, I think the epilogue is one of the best parts of that game. And it is, to me, it is a lot of the throwbacks because I love the scene where John's walking out in the cowboy outfit. I love the very
I do
end.
like those nostalgia scenes too.
I love the very, very end after the credits roll and you're back with John and John and Abigail are sitting on top
talking.
and that's the exact same spots Jack buries them. And they're in the exact same, John's on the left, Abigail's on the right, and they're right there. And it pans out and it's like, it's almost like the same camera movement as Red Dead 1 when Jack's right after Jack is buried buried his mom. It's just little nostalgia moments like that. That's why the epilogue has meant a lot more to me. Was shit like that.
Yeah, I think chapter 6 is obviously I think that just that section of just storytelling is some of the best in video games, not just in this game. So it's hard to beat chapter 6. I think chapter 3, the end of chapter 3 is incredible. Like that kind of just lasts like third. But if we're talking about entire chapters, I would say
Chapter 3 is the end of the Braithwaite thing, so they're not in Saint Denis
shit.
yet. Saint Denis is chapter 4.
it's chapter 4 is what
Yeah.
I meant. Yeah. Then never mind. I think the end of chapter 4, and actually probably the end of chapter 5.
Well, so
too.
the end of chapter 4 is when they're getting on the boat and they're doing all the thing and they end up shipwrecked.
Well, the end of chapter 4 is also the bank robbery.
Oh yeah, good call. No, that's the end of chapter. Oh, you're right. No, you're right.
That's the end of
Yeah,
chapter
you're
4,
right,
yeah.
you're right.
So the end of chapter 4 with the bank robbery and Hosea dying
Yeah.
and, leading to them getting on the boat. And then the end of chapter 5 are really great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of just entire chapters, I think the epilogue is probably my second favorite.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that bank robbery moment, or it doesn't have the, them coming back from whatever they called that place.
Guarma?
Guarma, there we go. It doesn't, well, is Guarma a real place?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Guarma was a fake place.
No, Guarma's real. So
Never heard of
Cuba.
Guarma. Well, but it's not called Guarma, is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Guarma exists.
I know Guarma is supposed to be Cuba, but I thought Guarma was just another rock star made up name.
Maybe it is.
But it doesn't have those moments of them coming back from Guarma or the bank robbery, but it
No,
does.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Guarma doesn't exist.
It does. It does have just a lot of great moments that are kind of missed in chapters 4 and 5. But yeah.
No, just kidding. It exists.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, the Republic of Guarma.
Interesting. Had no idea. That's the
South
problem.
Pacific. Yep.
That's the problem with Rockstar is they could throw any name at me, and I'm just gonna assume it's fake.
Yeah, sure.
Everett, we've been talking about Red Dead for a while. What are you playing?
That's a funny thing. I don't think I haven't played anything.
Why haven't you been playing video games lately, buddy?
I don't know.
It's been a year thing where you just kind of. I know you've been doing your Rainbow Six thing, kind of.
No, I haven't been playing anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was telling Chris about this earlier. I feel kind of disillusioned with the game industry right now.
Why? What's up?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm just not happy playing video games like I used to be. I feel like too often I'm being sold something and being I feel like I'm just being forced to play something either to grind it out over time or just it's like the game developers telling me this is what your time is worth to us. So you got to either stick with it or get out. And I'm just
That's fair.
I'm going to stick to more worthwhile things right now.
100%, dude.
So
what have you been doing in your free time? I know it sounds that's a really weird question I asked. That kind of
D&D.
weird, but yeah, but that's 4 hours a week.
Well, no, I mean, we all spend time outside of playing D&D
thinking about D&D,
thinking of
setting
D&D,
it up,
doing things,
building
in D&D.
characters.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, D&D is a lot of it too. I mean, especially like you said, thinking about it and making characters. I made 2 backup characters, by the way.
Oh, good. You probably
So-
should make a third one. Just in case. They're all gonna play like Haggis. He's
Yeah.
not long for this world.
Oh, I know. Just wait
Hey,
till I get to level
Can we
17.
talk about D&D for a second? Because shit, we don't have that much news.
I don't make backup characters.
Can we talk about D&D for a second? Because we don't have a lot of news. Actually, let's do the news, and then we'll talk about D&D at the end. That way, if people don't want to hear about it,
Hey, D&D's a game.
Because I have
right?
some D&D stuff I want to talk to you about, Everett.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so you've been making backup characters.
yeah. I mean, nothing too important. We'll see. I don't want my character to die, but
I don't want
obviously
your
I have to
character
prepare
to die, too.
for it.
Everett
I don't want him
and
to
I
die
had
either.
Everett and I had some chicken earlier, and we were talking about characters and backstories, and I'm excited to where Haggis is going, and we were talking about how he can maybe possibly multi-class. I'm excited.
Chris
for Haggis.
officially has more information about Haggis than the DM does.
Yeah. Well,
I hate you two.
well,
Stop being better friends than us.
well, if you came to lunch today,
If someone had told me a time to come to lunch today,
Yeah, well, that's true.
well, I did text.
you texted me and asked if I wanted to come to lunch. I said yes, and then 30 minutes later, you're like, "We are at lunch."
No, I texted you. What you know?
Whatever.
It's not. It's not the
Whatever.
I'm trying to be your friend, and you keep pushing me away.
Yeah. I mean, I've been reading a lot more.
What have you
reading
been
books.
reading?
The Red Rising series. If you heard of it,
I have not heard of it.
it's basically like I don't want to say Hunger Games, but that's essentially what the first book is like. If you like
No, thank
that
you.
sort of thing.
Is
but
it-
but okay, it's future, dystopian future. Essentially, the world has now been coded into color castes. So red is the very bottom. They're the miners on Mars, And so they like basically dig up materials for the upper caste, and at the very top you have like the golds who rule society, and then they war against other golds and other different like planets,
your
essentially.
basic dystopian future.
Yeah, except the main character is a red, and it follows him in his story as he figures out, his world is a lie, like, because they don't know about all the color system. They're just basically saying like, oh, we're working for humanity, until they come in and kind of colonialize Mars, when in fact that's already happened. There's huge amounts of societies on Mars, like it's super advanced, and then they're there slaving away under the earth. So it follows his story as he figures this out, and just the trials he goes through in order to change that system. It's pretty cool.
I have a problem with dystopian future novels and stuff like that. I don't know why. I have a really hard time believing that any kind of dystopian future could actually ever happen. And I think that's the biggest thing, is they're so like just out there that it couldn't logically ever happen. Not one government on this world would ever allow these dystopian futures to actually happen.
Well, but the thing is, you don't know it's a dystopian future until, I guess, things go wrong.
Sure. I mean,
sure.
I get that.
The
but
biggest example is like the Nazis, right?
Sure. Like the Hunger Games and stuff like that. It's hard for me to ever think that would ever happen. It's less believable that way.
I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale, which is a dystopian future.
Yeah.
And the basic idea behind that dystopian future is that humanity starts to become sterile. And during this time of just sort of upheaval, as actually the whole world has become sterile, but in America, everyone starts to become sterile, and there's sort of like this amount of chaos that's caused by it because people are, predicting end times and everything else. And so as the government's trying to deal with this splinter group of like super religious revolutionaries basically like go to like plan this huge attack on the United States. I think they launch nukes or something. They do something and destroy like a significant portion of the United States.
I wouldn't call that dystopian. I'd call that post-apocalyptic.
Except they don't the parts where let me finish.
Okay.
So this splinter group comes up and kills all the Congress people, Senate, and then sort of takes over the American government. So where the American government is sort of seated now is on the East Coast, where nothing has happened. And basically the way that they stay in power is that they've found women that are not sterile and they control them. So they control the only means of reproduction in society, which means they control who gets to reproduce. So the way that, and I'm probably not explaining the complexities of it very well, but that's one of the few times where I've seen a dystopian future, and I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. Sort of like the same, like it's sort of similar to like the Children of Men dystopian future.
Sure, yeah.
That also sort of makes sense.
But see, like to me, those aren't that to me that's post-apocalyptic, because an apocalyptic event happened that forced this future to form.
So you're thinking like classical like Brave New World kind of stuff,
kind of, yeah, like
where society accepts it, like it's just the evolvement of society and it chooses the dystopian future.
Yes,
right?
Those are the ones I have a hard time getting behind, because I have such a hard time believing that any world government would ever come to that point,
because it almost seems like it works in the opposite direction, right?
Sure,
it's like progression is kind of like the way how things actually go.
Sure,
and
of course.
The longer you go on, the more people get more open-minded, more intellectual, right?
Right. So regression is almost it should be an afterthought when it comes to dystopian futures. But something apocalyptic happening can forward a dystopian future, because they don't have the choice. Other words, does that make sense?
Maybe. I think
it's like
Handmaid's Tale. It's interesting because I guess you're right. It is kind of post-apocalypse, but it doesn't feel that way when you're watching it. It sort of feels like the society that people have. It feels like a society that people have chosen.
Sure, yeah.
It feels like the apocalypse side of the event is when this new government destroyed a significant portion of the United States. But it almost, a lot of, I think one of my biggest problems with dystopians in general, and I think this is something in Handmaid's Tale that exists too, is that a lot of these dystopian societies are born out of complacency.
Sure.
Which makes it hard for me to believe, but the weird complacency that exists in Handmaid's Tale sort of makes it feel as though like that society could not exist as much as it could exist.
Yeah, I
Does
think,
that make sense?
I think the idea of the nukes reinforces the complacency. So that's where like I could think I can get behind it. But something like the Maze Runner or the Hunger Games, where for
Or these
some
huge set pieces.
yeah, for some weird reason, society just regressed into racism again. Like that doesn't make sense to me
I
in
think
any way,
both
shape,
of those
or form.
are also post-apocalyptic.
I've never read them.
I don't know.
I've
Maze
never.
Runner, I'm pretty sure Hunger Games is.
If there was an apocalyptic event, then I have no fucking clue. Because I honestly, I've only watched the first movie and I didn't think it was that great, so I didn't pay attention to the backstories. So maybe it is.
You know what would be an interesting sort of like social experiment is to go through all of these all of these
Dystopian
futures
things, yeah.
and figure out how many of them are actually post-apocalyptic.
Sure, I think because the thing is when you have an apocalyptic event, that reinforces the regression of society.
Because like 1984 is sort of
Exactly.
it's sort of like the staple dystopian future, but it's really post-apocalyptic. because
Exactly.
The society exists as a result of all the shit that went down in World War II.
Exactly. So like, and you take video games, for example, Fallout 4, which is the furthest from the war, right? Fallout 4 is the furthest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fallout 4 is the furthest from the war. You can easily call that a dystopian future, but it was the apocalyptic events that forced it to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something like, well, I mean, Mass Effect was on the verge of it. If Shepard would have lost and Andromeda still took off, that's technically kind of like a dystopian future
Yeah,
because
in a
the
weird way.
But it is dystopian though. Because
Sure,
like
it
part
kind
of the
of is.
reason why Andromeda was launched was because they thought that they would fail against the Reapers.
exactly, but they
Yeah.
didn't. So it's a weird line. But when you get into
They're kind of going for utopian future.
exactly
too.
and that's the thing is I can totally get behind the dystopian / utopia when it's far future, sci-fi, Star Trek. Star Trek is the epitome of world peace. The utopian future has existed for years, and this is what's happened because of it. You know what I
But
mean?
that's something about video games though is that they've never really like Mass Effect is very much utopian.
Sure, of course.
But I don't think video games ever find that balance between dystopia and apocalypse. Because I can't really think of a video game that takes place aside from like Wolfenstein, I can't really think of games that take place in
Yeah.
dystopia.
But I wouldn't even call Wolfenstein any sort of dystopia. That's just an alternate reality future,
Sure,
right?
but it's
I
a
dystopia. It's a
dystopia
retelling
because-
of history. I guess to an
it's
extent.
a dystopian Nazi.
Yeah, I
government.
guess.
Yeah.
I guess
World
to an
government.
extent. But like, I don't know. I just have a hard time getting behind things like the Hunger
The
Games and stuff like that.
closest dystopian is fucking and this is actually probably the best example of a dystopian future is BioShock 2.
Yes.
That is the closest to a dystopian.
Sure. I
thing
completely
we've seen.
100%
'Cause
agree
there's
with
no
that.
apocalypse.
Yep, I 100% agree
Yeah.
with that one. But yeah, it's just hard for me to get behind. It's probably why I didn't really like BioShock a ton. I think the story in BioShock 1 is really good. I think the progression through that game is really good, and the Would You Kindly is a really, really great little jaw-dropping moment.
It's like a screw you to gamers.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think I didn't really like BioShock 2, and I definitely didn't like Infinite at all. But yeah, I think you're right. I think a perfect
I said
example.
BioShock 2. I meant BioShock Infinite. I can't believe you didn't like Infinite.
No, I didn't like Infinite at all.
We've had every time we can't talk about this game. We talk about it all.
I didn't like it at all.
One thing before to turn you off completely from the series of Red Rising is that the Hunger Games part of it isn't like Hunger Games. It's actually the only thing that makes it like Hunger Games is that they have a training program for all the young golds. And basically that's how they train them up to be like warmongers.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's the only part that it relates to Hunger Games. Like it's not like the whole society's built off of that.
Sure.
Here's the thing. I'm learning that I'm sort of like a media sap. Like most things, if they're sort of kind of good, I can probably get behind them. Because like I didn't dislike reading the Hunger Games books.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah.
think the Hunger Games books are pretty good. So I guarantee if I sat down and read these books, I would probably like them.
Maybe. I did find, if we're on books, I found a series that I really want to read called The Books of Babel. First one's called Sinlin of Sins. I have no idea what they're about, but they look very cool. Anything, in my opinion, that takes biblical ideas and puts a fantasy element to them, I love it. I think it's really cool because I
This is
think
our least video gaming podcast.
oh,
ever.
100%. But like, you know, with as much as I just am not behind the idea of Christianity in any way, shape, or form, I love the mythos behind the Bible. I think it's fucking fascinating. So anytime stories can take that, you know,
Sorry.
anytime stories and stuff can take the mythos and the legends and the stories in the Bible and turn them into a fantasy / sci-fi something and work it in that way, I love it. I think it's great.
There's a series on Netflix. I think it's called Myths and Monsters or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
oh yeah, I've already watched it all.
You watched all that?
Oh yeah, I've
that
already
is
watched it
like
all. I
pure
know.
DM fuel.
I know. It's
Oh,
so,
okay.
it's so
good.
good.
Chris, is part of the reason why you are not staying on video. And this is not a criticism, but part of the reason why you're not staying on video game topic because you haven't really been playing.
No,
games
I
lately?
know, and that's weird because I have been playing video games.
I swear I have not. I don't
I
think I've
know.
seen a controller in your hand. In
I know.
3
Well,
weeks.
that's because Whitney plays Fallout 76 way more than I want her to.
way more than you want her to.
Yeah.
She's playing
'cause
Game of the Year?
Yeah, she's playing my game of the year. No, she's hogging the PlayStation.
Oh,
So I got Fallout 76 for Christmas. My parents were able to actually find a Power Armor edition.
Oh.
So we got it. Chalk went up for the good guys, right?
yeah.
So we got
now
it.
it's a massive box in our
Yeah,
living room that we can't put anywhere.
no place to
I
put
wear
it.
the helmet all the time.
But when we get to the new house, man, it's going to be displayed and it's going to be fucking awesome. Helmet's going to be next to our Pit Boy. It's going to be amazing. So Whitney's been playing the shit out of Fallout 76. She really likes it. I do too. I'm like level 7. I don't think I'm far enough to have an opinion, like a good opinion on it yet.
I don't know. It sounds like if you've gotten to level 7, you basically have experienced the game.
Yeah, maybe, but it's still not getting old. And I think the character progression is making it not get old. I think the progression of, you know, I have a weapon that I can't use to level 10. Sure, that's a little frustrating, but the idea of level 10 coming up in 3 levels so I can use it,
Yeah.
it's pushing me forward. The idea of coming up with a build and opening these packs and getting these cards, and it's like, oh, I do want that. I want to use this. Excuse me. There's just... I think the character progression is really what drives Fallout 76 forward, and I think they did a fairly good job with it. I've run into a shit ton of bugs though, and that's so frustrating. So frustrating, especially at a end of a life cycle, end of a console cycle game like this. That just shouldn't exist.
It's weird to me because I don't think it seems obvious now, but I don't really think anyone could have said this before. That game just seems so rushed.
Oh, 100%.
I would be surprised to learn if they had been working on it for more than a year.
I somewhat disagree. I think they probably had a 3-year development cycle, but it needed to be longer because they're taking a game engine that they fucked up in the first place and made it to where it was almost impossible to have a multiplayer element in it. And they're trying to put a multiplayer element into an engine that they fucked up from the beginning. I think that was the development time that took the most time.
But you know,
and it should have taken longer.
You know the thing about that game though that like they could have gotten away with, and I don't. If they had just put NPCs and actual quest lines in that game, I think that they would have gotten a lot less grief than they're getting. Even if they weren't necessarily like Fallout 4 level
Yeah.
style stories
Sure.
or to that degree.
I agree.
I think the fact that like they
They would have
fucked
gotten a
up
percentage less.
I think they would have gotten significantly
I don't
less.
know, because man, the bugs in this game are so much worse than Fallout 4. Trey.
I think the fact that you have a completely empty world, right? Aside from enemies and other players, it's really empty. There's nothing like you take both those elements out. There's just buildings, right?
Sure.
I think that makes the bugs in that game look even more sloppy.
Maybe I can't agree with that even to level 7. I understand there's no people there to talk with, but that doesn't mean there's not quest lines, because there are. They're just it's a spelunker's dream. Let's put it that way. It's literally like if you're still playing Fallout 4 to this day, you're playing Fallout 76, because it's an explorer's dream, because there's always something to find around the next corner. There's always something cool in the next building, and that next building could actually trigger a whole nother quest. And you know, I don't. This game's certainly not for everybody.
Let me ask you though, because I feel like this would get old fast. I feel like you would have this idea at level 7. Doesn't the idea that really there, you know, for example, I was watching someone do some quest with the firefighter. I I don't remember like the content of the quest because this was months ago, but the way that the quest sort of played off was like, oh man, there's a possibility this guy is still alive, and it sort of like goes through maybe some of the things that happened like shortly after the bomb dropped and blah blah blah, and then you get to the end of the quest and it's just another dead body, and it feels like a couple of the other quests that I've seen have sort of ended like that, where like there's sort of this idea of hope, and then you get to the end and it's like, oh, just another dead body, or there's another dead person, there's more dead people. Does the idea that like you could be hitting the end of these different story segments but really have no real payoff outside of finding a dead body or another relic, does that get old to you at all, or is that like not a problem?
No, to me it's not a problem because, like I said, this is a Spelunker's dream game because there's always something new to find, and the idea that if you're going into this game not understanding that there's no NPCs, because that was very apparent at the beginning when this game came out. They've even said there are no NPCs in this game. So if you're going into this game expecting to find an NPC alive, then I don't know what you're doing.
I guess on my end, it's not necessarily the fact that I'm expecting to find an NPC alive, because obviously I'm not. I know that there's no NPCs. I think it's the fact that they couldn't write quests better around the game that they actually made.
Well, they do, because so like the firefighter quest, I don't know what that one is, but all these other like responder quests, they're all building towards something. Every single time you find another responder dead, or you find another holotape, or you find another letter, they're all building toward this overarching responders story that's fairly interesting. And at the same time, the same thing goes with the overseer. You have this overseer thing, and you can slowly, it's actually kind of cool because you can slowly see her starting to lose it. It's starting to it almost seems like she's losing her mind, because at one point in time you find her at her home, and on her holotape she's talking to her dead dad. And it's you can almost see her kind of losing her mind, and it's kind of neat seeing that. I mean, it's sad, but it's kind of neat seeing that progression. And that's still, she's also chasing this responder story. So the little parts that she's finding out and the parts that you were finding out are all building this big, I think, overall main story of Fallout 76. That seems fairly interesting, and it's all leading towards something big, maybe something revolutionary in the Fallout mythos, which is why I think for a lot of people, like if you're still playing Fallout 4 now, you're invested in the Fallout world enough to want to know what the hell, what's going on in West Virginia, because it's more than just the nukes dropped. There's something big happening in West Virginia, because Vault 76 was the only vault that wasn't an experiment. And it was the vault that housed all the forward thinkers of the time. And your job as, Vault 76 dwellers was basically, the overseer's job was to go find nuke codes and get control of the nukes. Why? That's the overall thing. It's like, why Vault 76? Why do you have us going and trying to control the nukes of the world? Why? You don't know China's not a thing. You don't know if the Red Menace is still out there. So why? Why are you having us control these nukes?
That's a whole other problem that I've seen people writing. I mean, again, I'm having all this as sort of like a armchair.
Yeah, kind of like an outset. Yeah,
yeah. But that's another thing that I saw people talking about. It actually started. It's created this weird conversation about. I mean, I think that a lot of it comes down to the fact that people just want to hate on Bethesda.
Sure. Which they kind of have every right to.
Yeah.
No, not every right, but they have a lot of rights too.
It was coming. And the fact that this was the game that did it, I wouldn't have been able to predict this, but it was going to happen sooner rather than later.
Sure.
But the thing about that a lot of people are saying is that I guess a lot of people feel that it seems very apparent with Fallout 4, starting with Fallout 4, but now moving on to Fallout 76, that Bethesda doesn't really seem to respect the Fallout series. And one of the biggest issues that I've seen talked about on multiple websites, Polygon, I think Kotaku talked about it. I've seen a bunch of people on Reddit talking about it, is the fact that they put nukes in players' hands, and that it really feels disingenuous to the entire series, because the idea of a nuke is such a heavy thing in Fallout 1 and 2, 3, New Vegas. But now players can just fire it at each other.
Sure. And
really the consequences for firing a nuke are pretty non-existent, and they don't reflect real life.
Very non-existent.
Whereas like in previous Fallout games, the fallout from a nuke is it's the center of a lot of stories.
Sure,
not just in the sense of
no.
But like, you go to the irradiated sea, right? Mm-hmm. This is an area where the most nukes hit.
Sure.
And it's a completely destroyed area of the United States.
Sure.
And people can just fire nukes whenever they want.
Sure.
It just seems, I don't know. It seems like they're satirizing this franchise that didn't really need that sort of
Yeah, I think those are the
satire.
I don't want to say those are the people that are that need to, pick the wedgie, pull their panties out of their ass. But, I think they have merit because I think Bethesda made a game that without the nuke idea, there would be no end game. There's no reason for anybody to play this game past the main story. So I think that's part Bethesda. Like, you shouldn't, out of all your games, all of them, number one, if you were going to make a Fallout MMO, you should have made it after Fallout 4, not in a lore setting. It should take place way after Fallout, the initial war. And number two, it's Bethesda's fault for creating it when they did, and then taking that idea of like, oh, now we're just launching nukes at each other. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, because
but again, you wouldn't have an end game if you didn't have that. You know what I mean?
But that's first, they're way. So many MMOs have a different end game that, like, nukes being an end game, you could have come up with a better idea, which makes it seem like your end game was sort of a forethought.
Sure.
The second point, though, is if you remove the video game side of this and talk about it in terms of lore, if I told you 2 years ago and the official lore of Fallout, people came out of a vault and they were just
started shooting
throwing
nukes at each other,
all the time,
it's ridiculous.
Wouldn't that have not felt like it?
100%.
I don't know.
And again, like I
Whereas,
blame.
like, Elder Scrolls Online, take a look at that, from the other side of that. The things that players do in that game and the conceits that exist at the end of the end game and all the different storylines, as much as it's a dragon break, and
That's
it's not
because
a
it's
part
a
of the
fucking
official
break,
lore,
yeah.
But if you had told me, as someone who is not super invested in the Elder Scrolls lore, doesn't know every level, that was official lore, I would have believed it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with Fallout too, right? Is the Elder Scrolls is in a magical fantasy setting, so it's really easy to dismiss crazy shit like that. You know what I mean? But it's also like, we've already got 200 years of Fallout lore, and you're making a game that takes place in already established lore. Like that's already asking for, die-hard Fallout guys to freaking be all over your ass in an instant.
Yeah.
Again, if I were to make a Fallout MMO, it would have taken place after Fallout 4, and the Minutemen and the Institute and the Enclave and the Brotherhood would have been your four factions. Like this is, and then NCR. Like this, it's not a hard fucking concept to make it a Fallout MMO. But for some reason, they on one hand, I gotta give Bethesda respect for taking a chance, but on the other hand, it's like you kind of fucked your own IP pretty hard.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm enjoying playing it. I'm level 7. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the character
that's all
progression.
Your favorite aspects of Fallout 4.
Sure, exactly. So, but then I'm also playing SWTOR. I got back on the SWTOR train because they put out the new update, Jedi Under Siege, where we go to Ossus, which is a pretty big deal. Ossus is a pretty big Jedi planet. And so I'm pretty excited.
I totally forgotten about Ossus.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to get through that and get to that. So
let's talk about the news so that maybe we'll have some time to talk about D&D.
Good idea. How long have we been going, Ev?
At least an hour.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
All right, 4 news items this week. Actually, is that 5? That might be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 news items this week. We should get through this fairly quickly. Number 1. The PlayStation, as of December 31st, 2018, has officially sold more than 91.6 million units globally, announced by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The 2018 holiday season saw over 5.6 million PlayStation 4 units being sold, pushing the system to its new sales milestone. As for the games, more than 50.7 million PS4 games were sold during the holiday season, bringing the worldwide sales totals to over 876 million PS4 games sold since the launch of Sony's latest console, launched on November 15th, 2013. Marvel's Spider-Man, which is Sony's fastest-selling exclusive of all time, continued its success story through the holidays, with sales reaching over 9 million units globally as of November 25th, 2018.
That's fucking insane. How long has the PlayStation 4 been out?
It'll be 6 years this November.
Okay, so in 6 years, the PlayStation 2 had sold 103 million units.
That makes sense too. Like the fact that it had outsold in that time. I don't I really don't think PS4 is ever going to hit PS2 numbers.
I just looked it up. PS2 numbers as of 2013 are 158 million units.
But I think part of that is because I think part of that is because the
Smaller countries.
Yeah, the PS2 wasn't an internet reliant device, which means that you could take it to countries that don't have internet and sell it.
Right.
And really, for a long time, the FIFA games kept the PS2 on the market.
Yeah.
It was, we have numbers from 2013. It was literally being sold as a newly boxed console in some of these countries.
For Madden and FIFA.
And they had FIFA 13 on it.
Yep.
Because that's what people were playing
Yep.
in these countries.
But it is extremely impressive.
Yeah, it is
that
impressive.
in this day and age, 2018, that we have a console that's almost at 100 million units. Like that's, wow, that's pretty impressive. Way to go, fucking Sony.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And we just need to wait for EA's next big thing to get an idea of how many Xboxes are out there.
No shit. Might be Anthem. Maybe.
They're cloud consoles. They're in the cloud.
I'm confused.
They don't really exist.
Next up, Blizzard has released a new Overwatch short story called Bastet, which reveals a small piece of information confirming original roster member Soldier 76 as an LGBTQ character, as a gay character. Announced on the official Overwatch Twitter account, the 14-page story features heroes Anna and Jack Morrison, Soldier 76, meeting up for the first time after thinking the other dead. The pair strike a deal to take on an evil organization in Egypt and reminisce about the past. During the preparation, Soldier 76 pores over some old photographs. In one, Anna recognizes his former lover, Vincent. Anna asks if he still holds a candle for Vincent, but Jack denies it, saying, quote, Vincent deserved a happier life than the one I could give him, end quote. Lead writer on Overwatch, Michael Chu, has also since confirmed that Soldier 76 and Vincent are canonically gay. Yeah, I mean, I talked about this a little bit on Twitter yesterday. I
agreed with your first sentiment.
Yeah, I can't help but have the whole like J.K. Rowling Dumbledore feeling where it's like it's really easy to say when you're not writing a story about a character or presenting a story in any meaningful way that a character's gay.
Yep. I think you know what? Awesome. The more I think the LGBTQ community can be represented in video games, the better. However, it comes down to the same thing we always talk about. It's like, why? Is he just gay because you felt like they needed more representation? Then I don't think that's a very good reason to be gay. Or was like in 2014 when Overwatch was announced, did you already know Soldier 76 was gay? You just hadn't established a backstory for it. I don't know. I don't know. I would never.
Well,
as a semi storyteller in D&D, I would never write a gay character just because I needed a gay character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
it's almost like you have to write it to where it doesn't make sense any other way. Like this is who this character is. Like it's a part of their being.
I don't necessarily know. Maybe yes. I of course I think that's how you get strong gay characters. I think though,
Which isn't that a better representation than just like, oh, in passing he's gay?
yeah, definitely.
Well, I've noticed a trend like when they start introducing characters that are already introduced like as gay, like or not, or they don't tell that they're gay initially, but then they come back like forth later. Like a lot of times it's the dead boyfriend story. Like I've noticed that trend. It's like,
oh my god!
Let
me go ahead and say it. Like if we're talking about fucking gay tropes, this right here, Dumbledore and Soldier 76. Epitomize the oldest trope about gay characters ever. You're an older gay dude who was in love with someone, but for whatever reason, your lover's not around. You never actually got to fulfill that
Exactly.
love. And so now you're a lonely gay guy who can never love again. Yeah. It's the quintessential gay story. And this is another example of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it just feels cowardly.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels really easy to say after the fact when people love a character that
Yes.
character's gay. Because the same thing happened with Tracer. But, like we're playing D&D right now and we're playing Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And in that story, there are a shit ton of queer characters. Literally, the party just met these two shopkeepers, Avi and Imbric, who
There's some awesome characters,
are
by the
awesome
way.
characters. I fucking love them.
You know what's funny? 20 years ago, saying queer was a slang. Was derogatory.
Not in, you guys have met a gender
crazy.
neutral character. You guys have actually met a transgender character. You guys don't know this character's transgender, but you've met this character. But these are characters that are all
Is it
written in the
Zoblob?
book. What's up?
Is it Zoblob?
Yes, it's Zoblob is transgender. I hate to out him.
Little
but-
dark gnome transgender.
But these are all characters that are in the book, and they are 100% gay. And, you know, as a DM, you sort of have the power to play that up.
Sure.
Like, if you are someone who is not into gay culture, you could easily say that Avi and Embrick are siblings. But it's something that's in the book, and they're written that way, and the book doesn't hem and haw over it. It's just like, these are gay characters.
Sure.
And, you know, do what you want.
Sure.
But, you know, especially Overwatch, they keep doing this. Like, Tracer's a lesbian. Soldier 76 is gay. Okay, give me an actual story and maybe I'll give a shit.
Sure.
But up until now, you're basically just J.K. Rowling after the fact saying that a character is gay because it makes you look more progressive.
And that's my point. That's a big thing I have. Like, again, you know, take what you want out of this conversation and take my opinion however you want. You know me, I don't really fucking care. But it seems super disingenuous when you don't. When you just label as like, oh yeah, they're gay. Mm-hmm. They're totally gay. They're 100% gay. Love us, LGBTQ. You know what I mean? Like, love us because we're including you. It's like, that's not, you know, with, like you said, with Wizards, it's like, yeah, these characters are gay, but guess what? That doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're still characters in a story that are gay.
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
meanwhile, they have, you know, fucking World of Warcraft where they have all these epic characters. They can make any one of those characters gay and it would have way more impact.
Sure.
Because they actually have lines of dialogue and they're impacting
Sure.
the narrative.
Yep.
But they don't do that. They do it with the place where they're the least amount of stakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, it's great. I think it's fine that community is represented the way they, in any way they can be, because again, we all know we live in 2018 where we're a lot more progressive than we were even 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. But even then, that community is consistently being ridiculed for something. So being represented in a video game, I think it's great. I don't necessarily agree with the way Blizzard's doing it. That's all.
One of the funniest things that sort of come out of this is, you know, it's created this weird thing where people are trying to like preemptively make fun of the Overwatch fans that hate the fact that Soldier 76 is gay. But I can also say that, like, on my side of things, I have yet to see anyone have a problem with Soldier being gay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've you know, outside of like, you know, looking for downvoted Reddit comments.
Sure.
I think for the most part, the two sentiments I've seen is like, okay. And
but because
that's great, but like, there's no story in this game.
Yeah, because that's just because there's no stakes. Mm-hmm. Imagine if, like you said, if Blizzard came out later and said Sylvanas is gay.
Yeah.
You know, imagine
or
if
the fucking king was gay.
or if Anduin was gay. Yeah, like, you know what the ramifications for that would be incredible.
But you know what?
But it would be awesome.
But also, I don't know that the ramifications in the story would be incredible. But I don't know that
because Anduin could be gay. I don't think there's a story with Anduin and lovers yet, and like a love interest. I don't think
the majority of players would really care. I think we're really past it.
I think.
Do you really like? Obviously, there would be some people that would be shitlords about it. Just like there are always the gay people that have shipped a character as gay and then they announce that he's straight. Like the whole Sherlock show problem, right? Like gay people are just as bad about it as straight people are.
Wait, is Sherlock gay?
End. There is this whole theory that with the Sherlock show, that Sherlock and Watson are actually gay, and there is this queer sub community that has built up this whole ship relationship. This whole shipping where like they are gay and really gay, and it's very obvious that they're gay. And Stephen Moffat and
is it obvious?
And Benedict Cumberbatch and whatever the guy's name, the Hobbit,
Martin Freeman.
Yeah, Martin Freeman. They have come out and been like, no, these characters are not gay, and the community just hates on them. Like they absolutely.
Just European.
What's up?
They're not gay. They're just European.
I mean, they do seem a little gay in the show. Like I can see where that theory comes from. But there's the opposite effect where like there are gay fans out there that become monsters when you tell them that they're a character that they like isn't actually gay.
I don't know. I think a game such like World of Warcraft maybe doesn't have the fan base that Overwatch does, but I think the ramifications of writing a gay character in such a prominent role would make a difference, and it would be more impactful because there's a platform to write a story around.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, like I think about Dorian, right?
Yes.
You know, Dragon Age Inquisition was a really popular game when it came out because it was really one of the only Western RPGs that was available on PS4 and Xbox One. So a lot of people played it. But, you know, even in 2014, I don't remember a lot of people being awful about Dorian. I don't remember there being really any hatred towards him.
But
he is basically Freddie Mercury, the fucking.
Sure,
in a fantasy world.
But I think because they had a platform where they could explain and not say why he's gay. That's not a thing, but explain it and explore it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a platform where you can explore that sexuality from or that is that the right wording?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it's a place. I don't want to be
No, you're fine, you're
politically incorrect. It's a place where you can explore that sexuality in a story, so it makes so much more. I love Dorian. You know, coming from a extremely freaking straight guy, I think Dorian's one of the best fucking characters in that entire game, and he was with me at all points in time as my second mage,
Yeah.
and we had the fucking best bromance in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I appreciated Dorian more, not because he was gay, but the father-son relationship he had. That was what impacted me the most. But the fact that he was gay is what caused that relationship to be the way it was, and that's something that you can't do that with Soldier 76.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think,
you just can't.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is me justifying Blizzard. I think I'm more talking about the future of gay characters, and I think that there is always going to be a balance. You know, because gays are a minority that recently gained equal rights, and because there is a hard history of being gay, there's always going to be a place in popular media for us to discuss those stories. But I also think that there's a place for us to just say a character's gay and move on. You know? I think, we have Dorian, who is gay and does his thing, but then we have that little elven chick in that game who is unabashedly a lesbian. That is just who she is.
Sarah?
Yep.
Yeah. She is
Is
a
she
lesbian.
really?
Yeah.
She enjoys women.
I guess
and-
I never dug deep enough into her.
Yeah, 'cause she's not a great character.
But pun intended. I'm just kidding.
Oh my.
But she's
Oh
a
my.
character that is gay. That she doesn't have a tragic backstory behind the reason why she's gay.
Sure, yeah.
She's just gay. So
Well, that's the thing is I'm sorry, but if you still live in a world where you think gay is a choice, then fuck off. Like somebody who's gay is gay. That doesn't make their fucking life tragic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it can, the ridicule they can go through, but Sarah's a perfect example. I had no idea she was gay, that's great because it's not part of her story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she just likes women and she
Right.
does her thing. And you could have both those stories in games, and both of those characters can be great. I mean, a lot of people really like Sarah. I don't, but
Yeah, I think she's annoying personally. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I think I'm gonna. I'm not gonna skip because it's actually. Yeah, I am gonna skip forward a little bit. Speaking of gay characters, Alana Pierce, known for her work at IGN and currently Rooster Teeth, took to Twitter to quote confirm that The Last of Us Part 2 is indeed coming out in 2019. The tweets have since been deleted, but the internet is forever, so of course someone managed to take a screenshot. One of her responses was a short quote, The Last of Us 2 100% has been confirmed for 2018. Where another seemed to go a little bit more into specifics when Pierce stated, quote, so I have been told multiple times by multiple people, not like things can't change or it's set in stone if it hasn't been publicly announced, though, end quote.
Sure. I guess if she has that pull, I have no clue. I don't see how anybody that used to work for IGN and now works for Rooster Teeth would have the...
Well, I mean, they have friends in the industry.
Sure, but unless you're Neil Druckmann, you're not making that call.
So, is Last of Us coming out in 2019? Maybe.
No.
I think it could. I think it could easily come out
Sure,
this year.
it could, but it's
because
not.
in 2017, someone brought this up online. In 2017, Neil Druckmann had said that Last of Us 2 was like 70% complete. So could Last of Us 2 come out in 2019? Sure. However, I don't think this is an official source. I think this is someone saying, basically it all started because someone posted a most favorite upcoming games in 2019.
Sure.
And Alana replied to the article and said, Last of Us isn't on here. Someone said, well, Last of Us isn't confirmed for 2019. And that's where Alana said it definitely is. I think that's more of a stubborn person not being able to admit that they're wrong.
Possibly.
Less than her having any official source about
Sure,
it.
possibly.
Which I love Alana. I've met her in person before.
Sure.
She's great.
I don't. I personally don't see this game coming out in 2019. I'd say March 2020 at the earliest, or the latest. I mean,
it wouldn't be unprecedented because Last of Us came out in May 2013, a couple months before the PS4. And if PS5 is coming out in 2020, like a lot of people are saying, then it's possible.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I just can't imagine this year going by with Days Gone, which looks like it's going to be a train wreck.
Whatever. Days Gone looks cool.
it's not the game itself that looks like it's going to be a train wreck. It's all the press around.
Sure, I agree.
This one was Sam Witwer, right?
Yeah.
I think it looks cool, man. I like the idea of zombies, biker gangs. It's cool.
But I can't imagine that being the only game that they're putting out this year.
That Sony puts out this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
Death Stranding, calling it.
Yeah. Half the game is out
Yeah,
this year.
seriously. The demo, which is
Yeah.
some weird-ass fucking story, will be out this year.
It's the second demo.
Yeah, what they do with Metal Gear 5, what was it called? Metal Gear Phantom
Ground
Pain?
Zeroes.
Ground Zero. Yeah, maybe we'll get that. Anyway, it's fucking whatever. Fuck you, Hideo Kojima. I think, man, I want to agree with you when you said, like, you can't imagine Sony not coming out with 2 games this year, but there's, multiple platforms aside, I really, really think Kingdom Hearts, Sony is betting on Kingdom Hearts being a seller on play and selling.
I mean,
selling that way.
at this rate, Sony probably doesn't care as greatly about selling PlayStation.
Sure,
I mean,
of course,
Mid
of
last
course.
year, they started to predict heavy drop off in system sales,
Sure.
but an uptick in software and online subscription sales. So I don't necessarily know that they're too concerned about that. It just seems because. I guess,
coming off of the last 2 years, I would have to agree with you, but at the same time, I don't know if Sony cares about getting 2 games out this year.
well, I
Not anymore.
It's just, let's say that fall 2020 is when they're going to release the PS5, right?
Okay.
That means that we know that there are 3 games that are up in the air right now. Death Stranding, which will not be out on PS4.
Agreed.
Ghost of Tsushima, which doesn't look like it's close to being done, probably coming out 2020. And then
On PS4.
On PS4.
Yeah.
And Last of Us. So it's hard for me to believe that they have a year where they don't release another like big exclusive outside of Days Gone. But those other 2 games besides The Last of Us don't seem anywhere near done. At least not this year games. So, they're also not going to E3. So it's very possible that this is just not a Sony year.
I don't know, man. It's just,
It just seems odd.
It's just weird because you got like Ashley Johnson, who is a member of the cast of Critical Role, that has been missing a lot of episodes because she's in New York doing Last of Us 2 motion capture.
We've established this, though. I don't think Naughty Dog is in New York. I think they're in like Sacramento.
Well, okay, I'm sorry.
Blindside.
Yeah, but she's also doing. She's been talking about on Twitter how she has emotional motion capture scenes. So they're still doing motion capture scenes for Last of Us 2. Could it be DLC? Totally, but I don't think it is. You know what I mean? I don't know though. I have no fucking clue. Do I hope Last of Us 2 comes out in 2019? I don't care because I don't think Last of Us is a very good game. I think it's a great story. I just don't think it's a good game. And I don't have high hopes for Last of Us 2 being a very good game either. I think it's going to be a great story, just like all the Uncharted games and every Naughty Dog game that's ever come out. I will put it on easy and put it on auto aim and enjoy the story. But I don't know. I just don't care enough about Naughty Dog games as the rest of the world does. They're just not good games.
Did you see Ashley Johnson is engaged now?
Oh, they got
Yeah.
Foster popped the question, huh?
Right. What a weird. I've been watching Between the Sheets. Brian W. Foster is just an odd person.
No, he's
and
a
I
cool-
love.
I
No,
think-
no,
yeah,
in
he's
the
a cool
best
guy.
way.
Yeah.
In the best way. But like, I can't. I feel like being his friend, he would be one of those people where you're talking to him and then he says something and you can't remember what conversation you were having.
So he's Justin.
Yeah, but Justin is dumb and loses track of conversations.
Justin, you're not dumb.
I was listening to
You're a little ignorant. That's all.
I think the last episode where I said your shirt kind of looks like it's fitted for a girl, like it looks like it's a girl shirt. He goes, "But I'm wearing a jacket," and I was like, "I'm not talking about your jacket." And he goes, "What?" It was like the dumbest conversation I've ever
Good
heard.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Last of Us 2 comes out in 2019. Cool. Alana Pierce is right. Everybody's happy. The world is once again basking in the sun that is Naughty Dog, but I just don't care enough.
I really like The Last of Us. I don't think it's a great game, but I think in terms of story, like if I were to put a close second in story to Red Dead Redemption, I would say it's Last of Us.
Sure, I agree with that 100%.
And I really want to see that story continue. Also, I'm ready. I'm ready. Sony's been doing a pretty good job with like these weird reboot, like the God of War being rebooted and Horizon Zero Dawn and all that other stuff. I think I'm ready to see another like sort of mainline title that isn't trying to break away from what the previous title was.
I would honestly like to see Last of Us come out this year and at PSX. If we think, like I said, PlayStation, I think PlayStation's going to do PSX big this year. They announce another rebooted IP. Like I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
And I hope it's Infamous. Now the more I think about it, I want another Infamous game. I thought Second Son was fucking phenomenal.
Oh, God. Second Dinner, a small studio formed by former Blizzard developers, has announced it's working on a new Marvel game. The announcement came along with news that the studio has raised a $30 million minority investment from NetEase, allowing the team to expand beyond its Capital 5 founders and open an office in Irvine, California. No specific Marvel properties were announced, though Jay Ong of Marvel Games noted, quote, "The team they've assembled at Second Dinner have made some of the greatest games in history, and now working with the Marvel Games team and playing in the Marvel Universe is going to be amazing, or maybe spectacular, or incredible, or mighty, or quite possibly all of the above," end quote.
I swear to God, if they make Marvel Heroes 2019, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, I isn't it weird that we have fucking that Marvel game, the third one coming out just to Switch?
Marvel
series?
Ultimate Alliance.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Sure.
Isn't that weird that that's happening and it's just coming to Switch?
Yes. It's not weird. It's stupid.
I still can't get over that.
It's dumb. And so this game, it could be spectacular or amazing or incredible or mighty.
Sounds like an Avengers game.
No, it sounds like a fucking Marvel Heroes game.
Maybe. I mean, but Marvel Heroes is just multiplayer Ultimate Alliance.
No, it's more MMO.
But they play pretty much the same.
Sort of.
They play very similarly. It's very obvious where Marvel 2018 got its influence.
Sure.
What if it's a card game? Because it seems like Second Dinner were ex-Hearthstone developers.
Sure.
Whatever. What the fuck ever. I don't even care.
As possible as anything else.
I don't even fucking care. I'm done. So far I'm done with Marvel games because the only thing that has Marvel's actual stamp of approval is that stupid mobile game called Strike Heroes, which is just fucking ridiculous. And what's another Marvel game that's out right now? Spider-Man. I don't count that one.
Spider-Man, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Oh, and Ultimate Alliance 3, which is only on
the Square Enix one
only on Switch. We talked about this the last time, and nobody else was as flabbergasted as I am. Why would you make a game that sold so well on PS3 and Xbox 360 and make it on a Switch?
Because Nintendo paid for it.
Well, Nintendo's a bunch of fucking asshats.
I mean, that's smart.
I hope the end drops on their head.
It's smart. And honestly, like, let's be real for a second. It's not going to be exclusive to Switch. It's going to eventually come out on other consoles.
Sure, but it's going to look like shit because it was developed for the Switch.
Maybe. I think it's going to look fine. I think it'll look fine. I think that the art style that they're choosing is one that like can sort of be ported to different devices.
But imagine if Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was developed for PS4.
Yeah, imagine it, but it probably wouldn't happen because no one was paying for it.
Which is dumb. That game,
of course it's dumb.
That game made so much fucking money.
I don't know if that's true though.
I bet it is. Let's find out. Let's see how much Marvel Ultimate Alliance made.
I can't imagine the sales on that game were super high, or we wouldn't be getting a third one like almost a decade later.
Maybe you're right. Marvel Ultimate Alliance sales.
I think that's part of the reason why the second one is so valuable is because no one really bought it.
Possibly.
And so there's only a limited number of copies out there.
Sure, you might be right.
Talk about Civil War though. That was the first time that we saw Civil War outside of the comics.
It's very true.
I'm trying to vamp, and there's only two of us. You need to help me, Everett. Nope. Everett.
I'm learning Japanese.
Why are you learning Japanese?
Because I'm curious.
I think I'm learning Japanese. I really think so.
I'm going to be learning French.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I have to take 4 years of the language. I wanted to take Japanese, but Japanese isn't super popular, so they offer the first one semester and the second one the next semester, but they don't offer the first one in the second semester, so I couldn't take it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And I don't want to be here for an extra semester if I don't have to be.
Oh my God, we've got nothing. According to the NPD sales group of Xbox 360 version Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 was 7th in sales for September 2019. 2009, selling 236,000 units. Nothing after that.
206.
236,000.
Yeah, then probably didn't do well.
Well, but then nothing after that. That was 1 month.
Yeah, again,
out of its
but
release.
That's
That's only that's only the second game.
But that's a pretty low number for first month sales, even in 2009.
Sure, I agree. However, the reception for the game was great.
So, yeah, yeah. Sure.
I don't think anybody who played that game said, "Oh my god, this is the worst Marvel game that's ever come out."
I feel like you're not presenting a very high bar.
Well,
didn't that X-Men monstrosity come out around that time?
But even then, oh man, what was X-Men Dynasty? What was that one where you got to choose one of the three heroes?
Make your point and I'll look it up.
Is that the one you're talking about? Is where you got to choose one of the three heroes?
Where you got to make your own X-Men?
Yes. My point is that like you're right. The bar's not high, but you putting a Marvel game strictly on Switch that is only at, what do we say, 15 million
Destiny.
Destiny. It is like Destiny. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That term just is, poison to all video games.
Jeez.
I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't understand it.
It's because someone paid for it. It's
sure,
the same thing.
I know you're
It's the
right.
same thing
I
with the
understand
Spider-Man
that, but I don't. Marvel has. I mean, talk about infinite pocketbook. Talk about a fucking bag of holding filled with gold. Marvel has it. They could pay any studio they want in the world to make Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on PS4 and Xbox One, and it's not like they're going to go bankrupt because of it.
At this point, I don't. I wonder if Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 kind of came together kind of quickly, because to me, if I was looking at bankrolling a new game, I could see an argument for not putting Ultimate Alliance 3 first on PS4 and Xbox One, or developing it around those consoles, because by the time that game came out, we'd probably be in the next generation of consoles.
Sure.
So I wonder if it was really easy for them to be like, yeah, we can put it on Switch because we can port this to anything.
Sure, possibly.
But also, like, we're not risking putting it on a dying console.
Sure, possibly. Or you just missed out on putting a game on a console that has 90 million units sold.
But at the same time, though, like, I think it's good for Nintendo. I
agree. I do agree.
As much as it's stupid for Marvel, I think it's good that Nintendo continues to prove the way that they're willing to work with third parties.
Yep.
When they weren't doing that with the Wii U.
I do agree. Today, Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen got announced for the Switch.
I saw that.
That's a great fucking game. Everybody who owns a Switch should buy that game because that game is fucking phenomenal.
The fourth and final Lost Forge in Destiny 2 Black Armory arrived today. Your little thing's covering up but rather than another grindy questline, Bungie revealed on Twitter that the Bergusia Forge must be unlocked through a lengthy puzzle connected to the mysterious runes players have been poring over for weeks. Here's the kicker. Once someone clears the puzzle, the Something Forge will be unlocked for all players, just like how the first Last Wish raid completion expanded the Dreaming City. The puzzle is centered around an area in the European Dead Zone, Niobe Labs, which can be accessed via a broken bridge located near Sojourner's Camp in the outskirts. Niobe Labs is plastered with the same runes dotted around the other three forges, but how they're connected is anyone's guess. Different runes are visible when viewed through the sights of different Black Armory weapons, and there are multiple symbols and codes at play. Which means also, we were talking about this earlier, and then I'm going to get up and have a cigarette because I don't want to talk about Destiny. But
I don't want to talk about Destiny.
Okay, cool, then we're done. But which is interesting.
I mean, I have one thing to say.
We were talking about how this really isn't accessible to anyone. It's really accessible to a small portion of the community.
Well,
but
Everett
now it's an even smaller portion of the community because not everyone has the Black Armory weapons.
Everett said it great. Who did they make this for?
Oh, the Cypher
Yeah,
designers.
Destiny literally sat down and was like, you know who we haven't targeted in our audience? Cryptographers. They need more to do. So let's make an entire last portion of an expansion for just cryptographers, and we'll let them have fun. What the...
I'm so glad Anthem comes out in a month.
Oh my God.
I seriously have not touched this game since Red Dead came out.
Yeah, I mean, I've touched it a couple times, and I just get fucking frustrated. I can't do anything because I can't level up because I don't want to go back and play content that I've been playing for the last year and a half instead of playing content that I paid for. So I'm still out $40 because I paid for content that I'm not going to get to play.
Well, you're not hardcore enough.
Fuck. And now even if I was there, I'm not a cryptographer. I don't understand how ciphers work. I can't fucking sit down and figure out Ottendorf ciphers at the drop of a fucking hat. So how the fuck am I
real
going
thing?
Yes. So how the
you can't figure out Ottendorf cipher, but you know what that is.
Yeah, so I can't fucking even play this content because I'm not
of a history major.
I'm not
They can-
fucking Indiana Jones or fucking Nicolas Cage from National Treasure.
That's a history major. They can tell you the history of how math was created, but God forbid you make them add anything.
Fuck, man, it's just so fucking stupid.
I do like to think that there's a parallel universe here where Bungie's trying to give Nicolas Cage like clues to get his career back online.
Thomas, they're like, you know, we really like National Treasure. Let's give Thomas Gates something to do. Since they're not making a National Treasure 3, let's make him work in Destiny 2. I just fucking, oh my God. I agree. I'm glad Anthem comes out in a month.
I'm so glad. And then after that, if Anthem's bad,
And
Division
Division.
2 comes out a month after that.
And Division 2 does not look bad at all.
No, it doesn't. For those of you that only want to hear about video games, we're going to end the show here. And then I just want to talk about Destiny for a while since we have Ev on the podcast.
D&D.
Dungeons.
Yeah, that's what I meant. D&D.
we're not
What is
talking about
wrong with me?
Destiny. I don't
Chris,
know.
I think I'm dying.
Hey, you have mini strokes every hour on the hour during these
Yeah.
podcasts, and especially during D&D.
Yeah.
Every like 30 minutes or so, you have a small stroke, and you're like, wait, what did he say?
All right, guys. Well, so if you don't want to hear about Dungeons and Dragons, go away. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Dungeons and Dragons only.
Okay, so we took a little break. We came back, and I walked in on a conversation about a lot of this. I think is we're going to be talking about the campaign that we're currently playing, the one that I'm DMing. I also think I want to talk to Ev a little bit about just sort of his character creation process because I think you can just come up with really cool characters. But before we started recording again, you guys were bringing up the fact that you don't think people are as excited about the future.
Yeah,
of
like I have the feeling at the table, with the exception of a couple of us, we're not all as excited about this as other people are. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm excited just because of all the things you and I talk about.
Yeah.
You know, you and I basically sit down and it's like, okay, this would be cool to do. This would be cool to do. And you and I are kind of like the unofficial storytellers of this thing.
Yeah, no,
right?
I mean, if anyone ever asked me to direct a movie, I would, or to write a movie, I would be like, I need Chris.
Sure, yeah.
Because
So
I think that you and I would just work really well as sort of like
So-
co-storytellers.
I'm excited for the story because, you know, and that's something I don't think a lot of like Everett or anybody knows is that, yeah, we're in a book and we're following the Wizards of the Coast Waterdeep and going into Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Dragon Heist and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. We're following a book, but I don't think what you guys also get is that Trey and I are sitting down and expanding. Trey, more so than I am, is expanding the story of what's just in the book. Because if we were just following the book, I could be completely wrong, and DM correct me if I'm wrong. But it's pretty much just a point A to point B adventure that's not super.
Dragon Heist especially is very railroady.
Yeah.
It's 100% railroad after you know, kind of the last like half of it is. Dungeons of the Mad Mage, on the other hand, it's sort of just exploring. It's kind of like a book that's condensed a lot of D&D tropes into one big thing, which is cool. But it's really missing the narrative side of things. So they're almost like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
Dungeons of the Mad Mage is almost completely sandbox, where there's potential for a good story, whereas Dragon Heist is 100% railroad, but all good story.
Sure. Yeah. And I just, I don't, you know, I was telling Everett today when we were eating is that you're doing a lot to make these two stories, which is it's so weird to me that Wizards of the Coast released a level 1 to 5 campaign. And then right after it released a 6 to 20 campaign, where they both take place in the exact same universe, basically in the same city, just under it. And the two things don't really narratively connect. It's so weird to me that happened. And Trey, especially, is just doing a lot to like make that connect. And what he's doing is super fucking cool. So I feel like, you know, as excited as maybe everybody is maybe about EOS, we should be just excited about this because Trey had as much a hand in EOS as I did. And so he's doing a lot to make this work really well. But like a perfect example, like I said at lunch today, is nobody really concentrated on their backstory too much. No. We all have reasons for that. Maybe it's past campaigns, blah, 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 whatever's going on. But I feel like nobody really concentrated on their character. too much when making these things, and you always make interesting characters. No matter what, I think every character I've ever seen you play is interesting. Haggis is one of my favorites, next to the Black Dragonborn.
Ragnar.
Ragnar. Next to Ragnar, and of course Gally. Gally's always going to be number one, right?
Yeah.
But next to Ragnar, I think because we didn't get to explore your angel character too much, which I know sucks.
Esper. Yeah.
Esper, I know sucks, but I think Haggis and Ragnar are just really fucking fun characters.
Yeah.
And I want you to be. I want everybody at the table to be really excited about this Dragon Heist into Mad Mage thing, because there is a lot that we have planned, but there's a lot coming up that's just like, you want storytelling and you want immersion, it's coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think though, I think there's one issue is that a new campaign had just been started where you guys had been working on characters for a little while before Dragon Heist got started, and unintentionally, because I was just going to run a Sunday game and who could be there, who could be there, but we eventually moved it to Thursday because we wanted to have more people at the table because we were excited about the story even before I had fleshed things out.
Yep.
So I think I kind of stepped on people's toes a little bit. I think that people had to come up with a character in 2 weeks when they had like a month beforehand.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with that because there was a while where we were sort of hopping around campaigns and not really settling on anything.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I really expected certain people to bring their characters over. Like, I didn't expect you and David to make new characters.
Yep.
I really thought you guys would just bring the characters you had over. So I was a little surprised when we sat down at the table and everyone had new characters.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Evan, I'm going to let you talk here in a second, but I'll let you talk.
But Beyonce had the best video.
Had the best video. But I think
that's a 10-year-old meme now.
Yeah, it is a 10 year. Wow, is it really 10 years?
I believe so.
It's probably longer.
It happened. I think it happened in 2009.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
But I think and this is just like maybe a selfish thing that I'm about to say, but like the amount of time that you put into those characters like Esper and Joe that we didn't get to explore, I just don't understand why that same amount of care and love and time wasn't put into these characters. Does that make sense?
And that's across the board.
And maybe they were. Maybe you did put as much time and love and care into these characters. Well, it doesn't feel like it.
Because like Akuda's a character that's like that too. I think everyone did like the same thing where they didn't put the same amount of time into it. Like with Akuda, he's probably the person that I have most developed, but that's because Taylor had a little bit more than everyone else. But even then, like, the direction that I've taken Akuda in on my side of things is very different than the direction I think Taylor thought it was going to go. And so that's me sort of like taking a lot of liberties. But aside from Akuda, like I think pretty much every other character at the table has like this same sort of issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's just sort of something to do with expectations, because for me personally, I had no idea what the story of Dragon Heist or even Mad Mage was all about. Like, so I had no idea going in. So I didn't want to bring too much into the world that was like didn't make sense within the campaign itself. Mm-hmm. So I guess that was my reasoning, and also part of the time thing too. It's just like, okay, let's come up with something that works, something that's solid, and something that's not like too crazy or outlandish.
Sure, but if you take again, there's a big difference when you're playing a already created module and when you're playing something from somebody's mind, like a homebrew. But you take Arkin, Gareth, and Gally. Pretty solid characters, but they would not work in Waterdeep.
Yeah, Gareth might,
but Arkin wouldn't, because Arkin's end goal has nothing to do with Waterdeep, and Gally is just he's too special to work in Waterdeep. Does that make sense? The only way Gally would ever work is in a homebrew campaign.
Well, he's like a traveling caravan gypsy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing about Gally though, is like even as someone that played, with you for almost a year with that character, I don't know anything about him. Mm-hmm. I know that there's a backstory there, and I know that it didn't really get explored, but I have no idea anything about Gally. Mm-hmm. And I think I sort of set expectations a little weird at the beginning, because I was like, hey, we're running these two kind of specific places. The problem with Waterdeep, and I don't necessarily think it's a huge problem, I think it can be a problem for players, is that Waterdeep is, these two modules are sort of centered around one location. Dungeons of the Mad Mage gives you a lot of variation in that location, but they're sort of centered around one place. And so what I didn't want is for people to come up with these crazy outlandish things that touched on themes that we weren't going to
Sure.
Yeah,
be
exactly.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But I don't think I did a really good job of communicating the kind of themes that are available for people to explore. So I can understand how like part of the like not having that information could affect the way that you're creating your character, or why someone might be a little bit more timid.
Yeah, because as far as I know and how it's been explained to me, apart from y'all's own explanations, is that Mad Mage is basically like 100-level dungeon crawl.
23. Yeah.
23?
Sure.
Oh,
it might
okay,
be
yeah.
shorter. I think I'm going to cut out some of the levels because there's some things I just don't like.
It's a big ass dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
But the thing is there's interlocking stories in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It's not like, well, so if we were going just the book, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, we just go down there because we're adventurers.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you would go down there in the book setting. But you know, the I hate that reason. That is such a dumb reason for anybody to go do anything. Why are you doing this? Because we're adventurers. Like that's really fucking stupid.
And you know, to give you an idea, this is going to be a hot scoop, and if our players are listening, then they'll get a little bit of a hint of what's to come in Dungeons of the
snap.
Mad Mage. But if you aren't listening, then you're not going to know, and that's a shame because this is really cool. So,
And
I'm
shame
gonna
on you
talk
for not
about-
listening to our podcast, assholes.
I'm going to talk about 3
You
levels.
can do
of,
what you want. We love you all.
I'm going to talk about 3 levels of the dungeon to give you an idea of what's going on. So, on one level, mind you, up until this point, it's sort of been like stereotypical dungeon or caves or whatever. One level, you get down there and you realize you literally come in on the level on a boat, and you realize that this entire level has artificial sunlight, artificial weather, artificial seasons, and there's a huge ass forest in the middle of this fucking area. And eventually, if you go down the stream long enough, you can see like a small like abandoned settlement.
Oh
And if-
god, I'm already excited for this level.
Yeah, see, that's what I
as you
assumed.
explore it more, you realize there are werebats that are causing havoc. There is a druid.
There's werebats? I didn't know
There
those
is-
exist.
Where?
There is a druid who might be a pretty morally complicated character, and there is a green dragon with a sword stuck in its head that has changed its alignment.
Because green dragons are typically evil, right?
Yes, because they're chromatic.
Yeah.
So that's one level. I'm not going to go too far into that, but then there's 2 other levels that are connected. On one level, it's basically there's a species there's a species in the game called the Githyanki. And the Githyanki live in the astral plane. They're very warlike and they hate mind flayers. But they live in the astral plane so no one ages. So in order to raise up their armies and raise their children, they have these things called catches. And they exist in the material plane so that their kids can actually age and train and all that. And when they get old enough, they get transported back to the astral plane. So one of the levels, there is a catch. There's a Githyanki catch there, which is very rare. It's really hard to find Githyanki catches. But directly below that level is an area that's completely controlled by mind flayers.
Oh my.
And the Githyanki and the mind flayers have recently become aware of the fact that each other exist. And so the adventurers come down in the middle of this conflict.
Oh.
2 completely different stories. But, you know, that's the kind of stuff that's offered. You have a very alien story.
Sure.
With spiders that's very much alien, and it's really crazy and cool. You have, you know, some of the criminal elements from Waterdeep have sort of made their own mark down there. You have dark elves and all. It's just crazy the amount of diversity that exists in the stories
Sure,
going
but
on.
on your end, the best thing that you've done is you've made all this accessible with an overarching story around it.
Yeah.
We're not just going down there because we're adventurers and we want to experience adventure. There's a reason we are going down there. And the reason, spoilers, Trey and I write stories together, it's really fucking cool. I don't know everything because I don't want to know everything, but I know enough to where it's like, man, that's fucking cool as shit.
And
you know,
meanwhile, there's other stuff going on because you
Right.
guys will have essentially upset a significant portion of the criminal elements of the city by the time that you finish Dragon Heist. And the way that Dungeons of the Mad Mage wants you to deal with that is just to pretend like it's over and it's done with.
Right.
But the way that I envision that is like, what actually would happen as a result of these adventurers meddling in a place where they weren't supposed to, and what are the consequences for that happening? And so as you guys are coming in and out of the dungeon, which you have reasons to, you're going to be selling items, you're going to be taking rest, there's going to be side quests and stuff that you can do to sort of break up the dungeon crawling aspects of the game. You guys are going to see things happening in the city, and it's going to be like, well, shit, you know, what's going on, and did we cause this, and how involved are we, and what does this mean for the future? And by the time that you get to the end of the game, you're going to realize that the goal that you'd been going for is not the actual end game. And all that is really cool to me because it's stuff that I sort of had Chris and I talked about it. Wizards of the Coast is really great at sort of creating like stories and outlines, but they do a really bad job of that's right. They do a bad job of sort of cohesively like putting these things together. And so for me, the challenge as the DM has been like, how do I make these two things sort of like match each other? And how do I make an actual campaign out of this? Because at the moment, it just feels like a short adventure on a really, really long adventure, but not an entire campaign. So that's been me sort of threading these things together and creating more out of your actions. I mean, this game is very much action driven. Mm-hmm. If you guys do something and you don't think about the consequences for you doing that, you might have a positive outcome or a negative outcome, but I'm not shying away from the negative outcomes. I think part of what I'm struggling against is training you guys from a different DM. And so I don't want to be too harsh right off the bat, but there's going to come a point where if someone does something stupid, there's not a reset button, and you guys could very much disrupt the entire ecosystem of everything that's going on below the city. Mm-hmm. And those could have far-reaching consequences that even extend past the campaign.
Sure. But again, going back to that original thing, it's like, we're saying this and, I'm hoping it's giving you a reason to be excited for D&D every Thursday. I'm not saying you're not excited. I'm just saying like, I think a large portion of the table just isn't really like, they weren't as excited as they were when we were about to start Rich's campaign in Jest. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And again, another main reason we decided to get Trey in the DM seat is because Rich was getting burned out. And I'm not going to ask somebody to keep DMing just because everybody else is having fun if he's not. You know what I mean? So that was one of the main reasons we decided not to do. One of the main reasons we decided not to do Jest, because Rich was getting burned out of DMing because he'd been DMing for almost a year straight. And now he has now he has the opportunity to play as a player. Anyway, all that to say is I don't get why not everybody's excited. And I don't get why not everybody put as much love and care and time into these characters. Even if this, let's say this is over next week, you know what I mean? I still put as much time in this character as I did any other one. I think the moral of the story is if you're playing D&D and you really, really love what you're doing, I think no matter what the campaign is, and no matter if there's a chance this thing could fall apart in 4 weeks, you should still put as much care and time into these characters as you could possibly do. You possibly can, because that campaign could end up being a 2-year long campaign and being the greatest 2 years of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just something I noticed, and I was just wondering your take on it. Why if, like, you didn't like Esper? I feel like you love Esper way more than you love Hags. Yeah. Not Hags. Hags is a guy that I know.
Yeah. Haggis.
Haggis.
Well, it's not that. I mean, I kind of think they're all sort of my babies in a way.
Sure.
It's just that I saw a lot of potential in the previous story, and I know a lot of setup was happening. And I guess that's kind of like I was excited to see the setup happen or see how the story played out from there, because I think after that point, it seemed like everything was going to open up in the previous campaign. Mm-hmm. So I guess I was just excited to see where the campaign was going as far as like character interactions, because I feel like we were all forming really interesting relationships as characters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I didn't bring that character into this campaign. It's almost like, I don't know, maybe I'm just too sentimental about those kind of things, but like...
Well, And real fast, I think one of the things that wasn't communicated to the table was that there was very much, when there was a possibility that it was going to switch over like that, there was very much that moment where I went to Rich and I was like, hey, all right, do you want to play or do you want to DM? Because if you want to DM, then I can wait. But if you would rather play, then like this, now's your time to say something and not be burnt out. And so, the switch over to Waterdeep didn't happen in a vacuum. This was as much Rich's choice as I think it was Chris and I's choice. And honestly, like the way that I had read it from the party was that most people were interested. I think had I known that, I don't know, I think there were probably some things I could have done better, but had I known that people were so excited about Rich's campaign, I probably would have just chilled out or just kept running a Sunday game.
Sure. Now I will say, I do agree with you, based on character interactions in Waterdeep compared to character interactions in Jest. I think for some weird reason, because if you take the characters we were playing in Jest, they were very eclectic.
Oh yeah.
Justin was playing Batman. Taylor was playing
As the Thing.
Huh?
Batman as the Thing.
Yeah, Batman as the Thing. Taylor was very much playing like a kind of like a version of his normal kind of warlock, but like more of a I don't want to say righteous version of a warlock, but something.
They were definitely on a mission because it was him
and Batman together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
and I think I was playing a character that I had come up with called Mormont, who's a wizard, but uses science as its basis for everything. Right. Kat was playing a little kobold dragon.
Yeah.
And you were playing a Aasimar celestial warlock.
Yeah.
So it was a very and David was playing a Warforged.
Oh, his character.
So it was a really eclectic character composition. Which on paper, you look at all these things, it's like, man, that's weird. You've got two different warlocks, one with a pact with a devil, one with a pact with an angel. You got a wizard who doesn't believe in magic, and you got a freaking paladin over there who gets his magic from this weird ass god. You got a warforged who has no idea what the fuck is going on because warforged don't have the capacity for emotions. And you got a little kobold dragon that just wants to steal everything. Like on paper, that's weird, and the party composition's weird, but
Sounds like an episode of Supernatural.
sure, yeah. But like, I think it started working because like Kat and I had that little thing where I would call her Little Dragon, and she started being like Mormont considered her like his little assistant, right? She would steal vials and be like, here, Mormont, I found these for you. I was like, thank you, Little Dragon. Those little things started happening. And I think to an extent, I was enjoying the character interaction there. But I think our characters in Waterdeep are so entered because I think Trey did a really good job of preparing us for what Waterdeep is, and then us making characters within that those confines. Because we have to, right? We've said this before. If you're going to go in a Waterdeep campaign where it's like a dragon heist, hey, this is what the story is about. You are adventurers trying to find gold that nobody knows where it is. So if you play if you're playing a warlock who just wants to be a demon, who as end goal wants to be a devil, that's not going to work in this campaign. It's just not. You're just going to be a character that has no story whatsoever. So I think Trey did a really good job of explaining to us how this story is going to work, and we made these characters, and it's kind of disheartening to me that we're not working as well as we should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I really, really think every single one of these characters, everybody from Dominus to Voss to Haggis to fucking Akuda, we should all be working extremely well with each other from a character interaction phase. But for some reason, we're not. And I don't think it's the characters. I think it's the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think everybody is fully invested in this campaign yet. And that was my initial question: is why aren't we fully invested in this campaign?
Yeah, like I mean, coming from the DM perspective.
Sorry, I'm super honest.
No. Like coming from the DM perspective, it's really hard because I don't think as a table have ever really told the DM exactly how we feel about anything. And so what I get at the end of the session is good job. I had a lot of fun. This is great. I'm really enjoying this, but I'm not really hearing any negative stuff or any things that I could be doing better. So
you don't know what to improve on.
yeah. So I don't know if it's something on my end that's not making it compelling for you guys, or maybe it's just too early on. Like, I don't know like how I could fix that because I think Chris is right. But up until him saying that just now, I don't necessarily think that I viewed it that way because that's not the feedback I was getting,
I mean, I just think it was just a weird transition overall. It felt kind of abrupt going from one to the other.
Oh, I mean, I think it was.
So
I think it was very
think,
abrupt.
I think that's basically the weirdness.
Sure,
I mean,
but again, that was 5 sessions ago, almost 2 months because of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think because we also had players a lot of people weren't happy with how their characters were playing out or how they were actually forming, especially
Sure.
how they actually fit into the world.
Sure.
Are we talking about Waterdeep or Jess?
Waterdeep?
Sure.
So I don't know. I think people, especially our newer players, they're figuring out how they want to play for the
Sure.
first time.
I will say in the case of like out of everyone at that table, the only person that came and talked to me about their character was Chris. Actually, you know, Justin did a little bit, but like the you know, no one came and talked to me, which was hard too, because you know, like that's a big thing. Is like I can't communicate with you. You know, David did, but David is a very interesting player where he was communicating the information that he communicated with that he wanted to get from me were ways to justify his character and not ways to build a character around the world, you know? But really Chris was the only person that was like, okay, like, so what are we doing? And I had mentioned like, there's a really cool angle for a dark elf. He's like, well, I have a dark elf character. How would he fit in? And we sat there at the table, had an hour discussion. Like, these are the different ways that your character could fit in. And these are ideas that I have. And then that spun out into a way bigger thing. But no one else had really, like, even, you know, Taylor, like I said, the person that I have the most developed, he came with a character. And then I've just sort of built my own story based off of what I've seen from the compelling sides of his character.
Sure.
So I think that, you know, that, I don't know, that's hard too, is that like there was so much potential for people to come and like sit with me and talk to me about, or just message me about what, you know, different things, questions that they had or ideas they had for a character and us developing that together. But that didn't really happen either, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just it was a question that I had just because I don't think we as a group of friends it's never a time where we don't have fun playing D&D. I think I can say that. I think most of the time we all walk away from that table on a Thursday going like, hey man, that was really fun. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just I don't, and in these first 4 or 5 sessions, I'm not getting the same feeling that I was getting even in Jest or between us playing in Rich's campaign. Because I think for the most part we were all super excited to what could have happened in that first campaign with our first characters, which is, you know, even to me even more disheartening too, because like, you know, we didn't really get to see a whole lot of payout, especially for Galley. You know, I've said this before. I feel like Arkin took center stage, which I don't necessarily like. But, you know, an entire campaign almost revolved around Arkin. And I'm sad that we never got to go back to your house and clear it of monsters and figure out maybe what actually did happen to your parents. You know they died, but did they? You know what I mean? It's like question mark type thing, you know, or Gareth's story or anybody's really. And so I coming out of that campaign, I could understand where people are like, I don't know if I want to create this really elaborate story because I don't know if we'll ever get to it, whether it's a story element or just we don't have time, whatever it is. But at least in my brain, that still is not keeping me from making elaborate stories. You know, every single one of my characters, Trey knows, I've got 5 or 6 characters total that we can juggle around. All of them have elaborate backstories. I don't even fucking care if we play a campaign for 2 weeks and it's gone. That character I'm going to make for it is going to have an elaborate story that can be you know, furthered. Is it going to be disappointing that if it never gets there? Sure. Like Balefire is a perfect example of that. You know, when we started the campaign with Rich, I was playing a character called Balefire, who was a warlock sorcerer. And he created a pact with his patron because his wife was going to be killed right there in front of him on their wedding day. And in order to stop that from happening, he created a pact with this devil. Was given maybe 45 seconds to say, "Are you okay?" Blah blah blah. You know, without even knowing, ripped from her grasp and transported to somewhere else to start fulfilling his pact. That character, Trey knows the entire story now, but that character, you know, it doesn't matter what campaign he's ever going to be in, that story is always going to take place. And if it can fit in, it can fit in. If it can't, it can't. You know what I mean? And it's just surprising to me that with as much talent as we have at this table from a storytelling perspective, because, dude, Galley's amazing, Esper's amazing, and even Haggis is amazing, but it's just crazy to me that as much talent as we have at this table, you guys haven't expanded like you have been. It's just weird to me. This isn't supposed to be a guilt thing, so don't feel guilty, right? I don't mean this to be a guilt thing. Justin,
I want you to feel guilty.
Yeah, Justin, Kat, anybody listening to this, don't feel guilty from what I'm saying. I'm just really surprised that, you know, everybody is so talented and so creative that it's just surprising to me that that these characters aren't rife with just potential. Maybe they are. Maybe we just haven't seen it yet, or maybe you haven't sat down and thought about it, or whatever it is. It was just a question that I had been pondering to myself.
Well, I think that's also another drawback of starting out low level in a way, and because a lot of our characters, like the classes that we have, like and our true abilities, still haven't come out yet.
Sure.
So we're all still pretty much peasants, right?
To an extent, we're adventurers.
Yeah,
Tier 1 play.
Yeah, like so even as like characters are going, we're still figuring out who like our characters themselves, like in game, are figuring out.
Sure,
who
which I think is really good. I think that is to an extent that's really good, but I also think low level play is really good too because like that is also if you want to I'm a fan of multi-classing into different things, but if the story makes sense, you know what I mean? That's like being at a low level. That means every single one of these characters is just a giant open book. You know what I mean? But it doesn't feel like they're open books. It feels like there's a book there, but it's not open yet. It's not ready to be written on, or written in, and it's just surprising to me. That's all. I just
yeah, like what? So like talking about Haggis, like what are your sort of thoughts about his general direction? Like,
well, he's definitely a much more simple character. I was talking to Chris about this in the car. I thought. Well, generally, when I made him, one of his flaws was he's a gambler, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of one of his
gambler. I love it.
That's one of his addictions. So somewhere along the way, he's lost some money, and maybe he owes money to people. And maybe that's one of his motivations for actually, going after the money, going after the
Did you know
dragons
this?
that are lost.
no, I didn't.
See, I know more about his character than you do.
I know. I know.
But the thing was, like, I didn't want that to necessarily get in the way of anything. Like, that could just be something. I know it's just something to kind of justify why he wants to go after the money.
Well, I mean, I think part of the people keep saying that. You're not the first person that said that. I literally just had a conversation
Of
with
the
David.
get in the way thing?
Yeah, I had a conversation with David and Justin this week where they both sort of said the same thing, and it's like, if what the table really wants, if they really want the whole straight through the story thing, they just want to go through the modules and they want to take the next year to do that, we can do that. That's not a problem to me. But the reality is that like there's a certain amount of play that's going to be happening in Dungeons and Mad Mage that needs help being broken up. I think once we really hit the ground running with Dragon Heist, it's going to be sort of a straight through kind of deal. It's going to take a while, but it's going to be a straight through kind of deal, which is why we have this time now to sort of open things up a little bit, so that when we do get on the rails, you guys don't feel like that's just been the entire game, because that's how that first chapter was. So we can go straight through the book if that's what people want. But the thing about character backstory and sort of building on those ideas is that they're a good way to break up sort of what Dungeons and Mad Mage is, because it's. I think Dungeons and Mad Mage is incredible. I think it's, out of all the modules I've read from Wizards, it's my favorite. Because there's so much cool potential there, and there's so many awesome stories that could be told. But at the end of the day, like, if we do 10 levels, people might get a little tired. I think they'll still have fun. But me being able to break it up at, level 5, it's like, okay, it's time to go back up to the surface. Mm-hmm. You guys go back up to the surface, and it's like, oh, Cal's mom is here.
Sure.
She's here to visit. Like, let's do that. Or, you're learning more about Akuda's stuff. Or, there's this random thing, one of Bryn's family members is at the house. Like, there are so many different things that we can do to sort of break up that monotony, so that when you guys are going back in the dungeon, it feels like something you actually want to be doing rather than something you're just doing because a module is pushing you
So
forward.
I really want to go back to something that you said, and apparently Taylor, Justin and David had expressed as well. In a game where you have all the power in the world to do whatever you want, and you have as much agency to affect this incredible fantasy setting like you do, why would you want to make a character that you feel like you don't want to get in the way?
Well, it wasn't that like.
Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah, but in the sense, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is I wouldn't want to shoehorn my character's backstory as the main spotlight. I guess that's the main thing.
So after Arkan, I get that.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? I above all people get
Yeah.
that, because I really hate, as much as I loved Rich's campaign, I really hate the fact that that Arkan became the centerpiece of that entire story. Mm-hmm. It really, again, I have it. it was great and it was amazing, and I think we all had fun, but I wish it would have been a little bit different. And that's not slanting Rich or anything like that. So Rich, I know you're listening. This is not negative to you, man. I love you to death, and I think you did fucking amazing with the Faerun campaign.
He was his first time running a full campaign.
Right,
like
exactly. But I am a little. I just there's a small little tinge in me that's like, man, I really wish Arkin wasn't the centerpiece of this. Even though it's probably my fault for creating such a fucking elaborate story for Arkin, and that's my fault. I completely agree.
That's not what happened. I can tell you from the DM perspective, I know exactly what happened in retrospect. You were the only person at that table that was talking to Rich about your character.
Maybe.
That's what it was.
Maybe.
Because I wasn't, and I know you weren't.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
I know no one else at the table was talking to, but you were, so it gave Rich
Sure,
inspiration
maybe.
to work off of.
But going back to my thing is like, you make a character that you don't want to get in the way. I just don't understand that sentiment, because that is what we as D&D players do, is we get in the way of this world and we affect it because we have the power to.
Well, I guess in that sense, I would agree. But I mean, as far as like, I don't want to write your story, Trey, is what I'm saying. You know what
Yeah, no, I get that. I think though,
because to me, it's less important about where the character's been and where the character actually goes from the campaign. At least that's just my play style.
Take Akuda. Akuda is a character.
Except for Isaac.
Sure.
Take Akuda. Akuda is a character that I guess what I'm not necessarily looking for is, I don't know that I'm necessarily looking for someone to write the story. D&D is a cooperative storytelling experience.
Yeah.
That, I presented a scenario, you guys provide the action, and I react to the action.
Yeah.
And then it goes back and forth like that until we have the end of a campaign. But, with Akuda, when Taylor gave me like a perfect amount of information where it was like, I'll just say it here, and if someone's listening, it's fine. But, with Akuda specifically, it was, my father was a blood hunter. My mother wasn't a blood hunter. I was raised as a blood hunter. And then my order got wiped out. And now I'm sort of lost and in Waterdeep looking for a purpose. And so for me as a DM, it was like, okay, I had an initial idea that was sort of convoluted and was pulling us away from Waterdeep. And then I was like, wait, well, actually, I was running it by him, and he presented an idea of something that I had brought up in Waterdeep and something that's sort of minorly important. But he had brought this up, and I was like, oh shit, that's perfect. So what the challenge for me as a DM was in making his story, which is almost done, at least for the near future, in making his story, it was, how do I take this element of this character, these places that he's been and who he is as a person, how do I work that around Waterdeep? But also, I'm not looking at backstory. I don't think, the thing about backstory and the thing that sucks about it as a concept in D&D is that we take this idea of backstory and we think that it's the most important parts of our character. But the reality is that the majority of the people that are living on Earth right now are not constantly fighting against the things that happened in their past.
Sure, but
they're fighting against the consequences. And so for me, I'm looking for a forward story.
Yes.
Give me something that I can sort of put a bow on and tie up, but give me something that I can push forward and sort of find a way to integrate them into Waterdeep. Because the fact that I've gotten Taylor's story, which was so outside of Waterdeep, now intermingled with Waterdeep in a pretty indirect way, that was really cool for me to figure out. And I think there's always space for a table, like, Cal is very much a character who doesn't have this super grand story, but he has a desire that I can play with as a DM.
He's got a lot of potential.
He does have a lot of potential. But, if you look at all the characters so far, in terms of backstory, Cal probably has the least amount, but he has a lot of potential for me to work with because of his character's aspirations.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it's like, when I'm asking players about the things that they want for their characters, it's never, where did your character come from? What are the deep, dark things that happened in his past? It's like, tell me a little bit about where your character came from, but tell me what your character wants. Because that's more important than anything else.
See, and the thing is, too, is to piggyback off that, like, I 100% agree. Mm-hmm. We should be forward-thinking in every character that we make. However, that backstory, the fact that Voss was a slave in the Underdark for however many years, and Waterdeep was the city that got him out of it. Mm-hmm. So now his main aspirations going forward is liberty for Waterdeep. Because he understands that Waterdeep, while not slavery like the Underdark, is still ruled by people that aren't equal, that don't see the common man as equal.
Well,
right. So, but what I'm saying is that backstory. What's the reason he's a compulsive gambler? Why is he a drunk? Because those things are important, not to Waterdeep, but to you as a character. Why the hell is Haggis drunk and gambling all the time? Something must have happened. And what that's going to do is that's going to affect your aspirations going forward. That's going to affect like Voss's whole aspiration, liberty for Waterdeep. Why is that his main aspiration? Because he was a slave in the Underdark.
Well, and that's the thing about sort of, if you're looking at rules as intended for backstory, really the way that the book sort of describes backstory is a list of justifications for why your character is the way that they are.
Exactly.
Even the DMG, I don't think, has any section on progressing a character's backstory.
Sure.
I think really one of the bad side effects of Critical Role, because as much as Critical Role is an amazing show, Matt Mercer has set sort of unrealistic expectations for how a DM should handle backstory, because if you look at that first season, there are significant chunks of that. I look at Whitestone because that's what I've gotten through.
Yep.
It's like 5 or 6 episodes just exclusively focusing on Percy's backstory, but that's not a realistic way to necessarily tell a character story.
Well, the problem there is that Exandria exists solely in Mercer's head.
Uh-huh.
So for Eos, it's going to be extremely easy to get you guys' backstories going, center point, and very, very front and center in these things because it all exists in my head.
Uh-huh.
But when you've got an already created module where the lore, you don't get to play with the lore as much as you want to, that's where you run into the problem of like, well, this is my backstory. It's like, okay, but in Waterdeep, your backstory doesn't matter because you can't. Your backstory is not going to affect Waterdeep because it can't, because it already exists. Does that make sense?
I could see how players have that. I could 100% see how players have that. That I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I can see where that idea comes from, but in a lot of ways, I'm playing. I'm telling you, backstories aside and all that, depending on what the party wants to do, depending on how the party does it, there will be this alternate multiversal version of Waterdeep that could be just an ultimate shit show. Like the party has the power based off of their actions and the decisions that they make to turn the city of Splendor into a shithole run by criminals.
But that's progressive character. That has nothing to do with our backstories.
Well, I mean, but I don't. That's the thing about Matt Mercer's game, though, is that I don't think that the whole point of a backstory is that something that's happened in the past, and there can be consequences and stuff that kind of come out of your backstory, but I don't necessarily think it's realistic for every character to get the sort of focus on their backstory that Vox Machina
of course.
did.
I agree.
In fact, I really think if you look at, in terms of the backstories that I know, I think the character that gets that has the best example of a crafted backstory in D&D is really Scanlan. Because Scanlan is, Scanlan and the whole story with his daughter, you don't have to take 7 sessions out of a game in order to explore that.
Sure.
That's a story that's going on and progressing, and it gets to a point where it leads to a huge confrontation between the party because of the way that Vox Machina is affecting Scanlan's relationship with his daughter. And there's far-reaching consequences for that. And in a lot of ways, there's justification for Scanlan to have never come back because of what Vox Machina did. But Percy is the exact opposite end of that, where it's like, it's cool, it worked out really well, but it's hard to think of, in most D&D games, how you make something like that happen,
Sure.
Even Arkin to a certain degree, Arkin is cool because his story was all forward story. You could make all that
100%,
happen.
yes.
It wasn't about going back and tying up his past. It was
Right.
about where is Arkin going.
Well, that's because Arkin's past is literally just making a deal with the devil.
Well, and
That's all.
And that thought process is the difference between Gareth and Aiden. Gareth is someone that I very much wrote as a character as if I was writing a book. And, to a certain degree, it was a little unrealistic for me to expect to ever get the sort of payoff I wanted with him because he needed some special attention that, I didn't talk to Rich about, and so I didn't get it. But Aiden, on the other hand, his story is entirely forward story.
Sure.
This is where I came from. This is who I am. This is why I'm here. And this is the direction I'm going. This is what's driving me forward.
Right. Right. So, that's kind of that's my point is right. Talking to everybody about EOS, you all gave me I had one thing, literally one thing you guys had to do while you were on the boat. That's it. And your backstories, with the exception of you because of who you are in EOS, but like everybody gave me a fairly elaborate backstory, but it has nothing to do with how they're going to progress going forward. You know what I mean? Which is why it's crazy. It's crazy to me that you guys didn't do the same thing here. And I don't know if it's the constraints of Waterdeep that made you guys think that you couldn't do that, because you can. Coming from somebody who used to write, stories of their made up Jedi and make them work into the Star Wars mythos, it's very, very easy to take a character and intertwine them in an already existing story. It makes, one half of your job is already done as a DM when the world already exists. So writing a character like Haggis and giving an aspiration would have been, and the aspiration is, hey, I have a shit ton of debt that I need to pay off. That's really easy for a DM like Trey or a DM like me or whoever it is that's your forward progressing story. There it is. I told you in the car earlier, it's like, hey, yeah, you have this unbelievable debt that you have to pay, and you want to get to these dragons, but what if something happens and you guys don't get them, or you do get them and it's not enough, but there is one item in the Undermount that will pay off your debt. Now Haggis has a reason to go into the Undermount. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just it's weird to me that you guys didn't get all that information to Trey. That's all I'm saying. I just don't understand why people aren't excited. Weren't as excited about this as they have been for every other thing. I don't know if it's because we're running a module. Maybe.
I don't know, because I don't feel like we had that problem with Chris Estrad, really.
Yeah, no, that's true too. Maybe we didn't. Maybe it was the abruptivity. Is that a word?
Everett, do you just not like me? Is that what we're coming to here?
I don't know. I mean, I'm having fun playing the game, so I'm always having fun playing D&D.
Sure, but don't you want a payoff for your character, your baby? Don't you want something more than just I get to punch stuff?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe a lot of times stories are just unfulfilled. In life, they never get completed.
Yeah, sure, they totally can be, but
I sort of think that's one of the conceits of Dungeons and Dragons, though, is that will a character ever be completely fulfilled? Unless they die, I don't think so, because there's sort of this idea after the campaign's over, what did Gareth do?
Yeah.
Did he hang up his sword and, go find a farm with Rory and, spend the rest of their lives raising cattle? Or, did he go out there and kill his stepmother and sort of, bring the orcs back into civilization and back from the brink of destruction?
Did he find out what Arkin actually did and say, that stupid son of a bitch, I'm going to hunt his ass down?
What did Arkin actually do?
Killed Asmodeus and created the Nine Hells. Like, I opened the portal to the Nine Hells or something. I don't remember exactly what I did.
I think Gareth understood that, but I think he also was like, well, I trust Arkin, and even if I wanted to do something, what can I really do?
Sure, yeah. Now especially.
But that's a thing, though, right? Like, what, Gareth is part of the Crimson Banner. He's the leader of the Crimson Banner. He's been doing it for years, and he's sort of been taking up that mantle. And suddenly, through some way, he becomes aware of the fact that Arkin has become this evil entity. Maybe not by his own accord. Maybe it's just the power, or maybe the perception of what he's doing is evil,
or maybe it's balance.
But what would Gareth do in that?
Sure,
sense?
yeah.
100%. If Arkin did something like catastrophic, and even if Arkin had a good idea behind it, Gareth would be like, I created this monster. I have to die trying to prevent him from doing more.
Yeah.
There is a level 20 plus campaign out there where Gareth is recruiting a group of adventurers, including Gally, to go take down Arkin.
Sure.
He brings back the Faerun Trotters, and they go to the Nine Hells to defeat the new Asmodeus.
100%. And why don't you want that for Haggis?
But that's the whole thing is like,
or why? And this goes out. If anybody at our table is listening, why don't you want that for your characters?
I think that's the prime example of why I play the way I do, because in a sense, I did have the backstory for Gallia, right? I did have some things in mind. I had some plot points in there. I threw them out there, and they were like hooks for why his character, the way he was the way he was that he was. And
nailed it.
Right.
I understand.
If you understand the way that I am, because of the way I am, like that ended up going to the wayside, and the story that we created as a group was like way cooler than anything that I could have thought of. Like he got to do he slayed gods.
I think
as a part of his destiny.
I think the important thing about a backstory, though, isn't necessarily for the individual player. I think it's for the other players. You know, like when I think of Akuta's backstory, I really want to have that moment. Man, we are all just sneezing and coughing.
It's called flu season.
I really want to have that moment where I drop Taylor's jaw, but the backstory, like where he comes from, should say something to the whole table. You know, part of like going back to visit Cal's mom, which is something that hopefully is going to happen next session, unless we spend another 4 hours on the docks.
Make it so.
But you know, Cal going back to visit his mom. If you're looking in terms of an actual character as a person in real life, me going home to visit my parents is something I do weekly. It is not special. I'm going home to see my parents. But if I were to bring everyone at the table along to come home and see my parents, you know, my house, my mom, my dad, our dogs, my sister, my grandparents, that tells you a lot about me. Mm-hmm. It's almost as a way to sort of communicate ideas at a table, or to give the rest of the party like ways to jump off and like talk to a character about their past and who they are. It allows you to like figure out so much about their character. And sure, there should be good payoff there for the actual character, but that's not the overriding goal for me presenting this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Because no one asked Gareth. No one really ever asked Gareth about who he was or where he came from or why he cared. No one really ever like thought about Gareth as a character.
If I was playing somebody different than Arkin, I would have.
Yeah, but you know, with the way that the table sort of reacted to Gareth, he was the leader and he was in charge, and so everyone defined him by his actions and not the events that led up to him. I think Gally was a lot like that too. Whereas like I look at Genlar, right? Genlar was a character that as a player I was extremely interested in because there was something more to him, and I kept trying to figure it out. And of course, as always, our table has a currency of secrets, and so no one would tell me shit about their characters, so it was hard for me to give a shit after that.
Yeah.
But if I can force those questions to come out in the open and give, you know, sort of corner a player into actually answering those questions, I think it creates a closer bond amongst the party. You get a character. You
I
know?
agree. Yeah, I don't know. I just I wish, and I could be wrong. I'm 100% open to be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. I feel like, you know, this current setting that we're in, nobody's excited about those stories after level 20. Nobody's excited about there's an alternate reality out there where Gareth and Arkin are fucking clashing swords right now, and Gareth is losing hard, and he's got to pull everything he can out of his ass to beat him. And there's another alternate reality where Gareth wins. You know what I mean? And to me, like I'm literally giddy inside thinking about a level 20 Arkin versus level 20 Gareth. Because I think it'll be close.
Yeah.
To be completely honest with you, I think it would be really fucking close.
Especially because the first thing Gareth would do would go get Gally.
Exactly.
Not only that, it's a level 20 sorcerer.
Exactly.
You know.
And so like, you know, we have these conversations about that, and I just don't understand why nobody's excited about those level 20 conversations after we're done here. I don't get it.
We're not level 20 yet.
Of course we're not, but we were talking about stuff like this in Rich's campaign. We were talking about like what we'd be doing at super high levels, and we were already talking, you know, we were consistently talking about how awesome everybody's characters were. And we were talking about their backstories and what could happen and what might happen then. And even in jest, we were doing the exact same thing. We only played for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, but we were consistently talking. It's like, man, this is really cool. You know, what if this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then we started this, and then it's nothing. Trey, I talked to Trey, and that's pretty much it. You know, we don't really, and to an extent, Trey and I have talked to Taylor about his story and progressing his story forward and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it. And it's crazy that nobody else is super excited about, man, this would be really cool if this character could do this, and then I could go do this, and blah, 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 and all these other things. You know, all on the idea of, well, I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Man, and it's just the thing that, like, you know, we should probably end this conversation soon because I do have stuff I need to do.
Whatever,
But
it's only 7:30.
Oh shit! We need to end this conversation real soon. But you know, one of those things that like is disappointing for me at a DM is it's not even necessarily that people are coming to me with ideas I can't work with. It's that no one
It's coming with ideas. Period.
is coming with ideas. You know, like
Sure.
You and I created the idea for your character.
Mm-hmm.
That was something we worked on together. Akuta gave me enough information. I think Taylor's probably the most invested in his character at the table, from what I can
agree.
tell. Bryn hasn't answered any of my messages asking her the things that I need to answer. Cal did, but Cal, he's just a fairly simple character, and more, it's more what can I do with the things that he's given me,
which is awesome. We talked about Cal before. The best thing about Cal is, like, I think all that needs to happen is Cal needs to be a hero of Waterdeep.
Yeah,
and that is his story.
That's
right
his
there.
arc.
How he becomes a hero of Waterdeep, which he's going to anyway, as long as he doesn't die.
Yeah,
that's Cal's story, which is awesome.
Gordon is I'm pretty sure he's scrapping the majority of his stuff, and it's sort of hard to figure out where we're going from there. Dominus,
I had a good idea for Gordon. Don't know if it'll work,
but Dominus is sort of like, Rich is figuring out how to play a character.
Sure.
And I feel like I'm missing. Oh, and Haggis. I mean, we've been talking about. Haggis is sort of in the same place as everyone else. Where I don't know. That's the part that like is hard for me. Is it's not even like I don't have ideas for most of the characters. I have ideas for Cal, but a lot of that is me presenting a scenario as a DM and seeing if Justin picks it up or not. So it's hard. It's hard to. I can go and do whatever. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of hard as a player too. Like when everybody's excited to play. Don't get me wrong. It's just nobody's excited about their character's progression.
It's like being commissioned to do an art piece, but the person
and you're excited to get paid,
but the person won't tell you what they want you to draw.
No, not even that. It's just it's like you're commissioned to do an art piece and you're excited to get paid, but you don't care what's going to come out at the very end.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm the person being commissioned, and my client is the one that won't tell me.
Oh, see, I'm not doing two people. I'm just talking about the artists themselves. Like, it's I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not a bad thing. You can just tell at the table that nobody's excited about their characters, or if most people aren't excited about their characters. You can just tell. It's the way they're playing. It's the way, I don't know, you as a level 1 character running into a battle where goblins are pointing arrows at you and you turn around and you literally turn your back to them at level 1.
I didn't realize they had arrows, by the way.
Sure, yeah. We found that out later too, that you didn't realize they had arrows, but that's that level 1 character rushing into the battle and turning your back on an enemy. It's like you're playing like you don't care about Haggis. You know what I mean? You don't even care if he dies or lives. Because
I do.
Well, I mean, but it just doesn't seem like you do because you ran into a battle at level 1 and turned your back on 2 enemies.
I don't know how to fight. I'm
just
a drunk
maybe.
on the street.
Yeah, sure, maybe. But nobody's like last week, 2 times. Hey, how's your grandma? And it was like, I think to other players, it sparked the thing. It's like, oh. Everybody knows Bryn's grandma, but Bryn was like, I don't know. Like, well, shit. Well, she doesn't seem very interested in her grandma, so why should we seem interested in her grandma? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, David and Gordon, Gordon, I think David's a brand new player to D&D, so he's had, creating characters is a foreign language to people like that. Brand new characters. So I think he's doing that growing pains thing is like, well, how do I create a character? What's the best way to make a character in settings that already exist and stuff like that? But I don't know. I just want everybody to be excited about their characters. Sure, everybody's excited to play, but if you're not excited about your progression of your character, then why are you playing in the first place?
Yeah, well, and I think I'm sort of where I have to get to as a DM is just accept that, like, oh, this is just not something that the table is interested in. So the people that are interested, I can give them that sort of attention. But
sure.
Like, I can't force you guys to send me information about
sure,
your characters.
Of course.
And that's fine. If that's not what the party wants to play, I'm not going to force it. Because I hope that I really think what's going to happen, and this is my prediction. My prediction is that no one's really going to come to me with anything. No one's going to come to me and talk about their characters. And they're going to see what happens to Okuda, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh. And then all those, people that wanted potential for their characters in Faerun, or people that had ideas for their characters in Jest and all this other stuff, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't even know that this was possible. I can't believe you took it this far. And they're all going to come rushing to me with their ideas. Because I really think that unless I really piss Taylor off with what I'm doing, I think it's really fucking cool.
I 100% agree with that.
And it's completely different than anything he's expecting. And it's really, outside of things that I've run by you or ways that you've helped me kind of like hammer out that idea,
mm-hmm.
I would say 90% of that idea is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And not even Taylor contributed that much to the idea.
Sure.
And so it'll be interesting to see how people react to Okuda's story.
I agree.
Or just the direction I'm taking him. Because even then, again, it's not about his backstory. It's about his forward story.
Yep.
There are elements of his backstory that are contributing to where he's going. But at the end of the day, it's the person that I think Taylor thinks Okuda is going to be at level 20 and the person I think Okuda is going to be at level 20 are two completely different people.
Sure.
That's
I agree.
cool.
I agree. But that's only, I'll include me in the statement. That's only 2 player characters that are, you know, we have the idea all the way to level 20.
Yeah.
That's only 2 of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, like I agree with Trey when it comes to Okuda, and I definitely don't want to get into too much spoilers, but there's jaw dropping moments for Okuda, and there's going to be a huge jaw dropping moment for Voss. And it's going to happen. And I just hate that you guys either don't want to experience that or aren't excited to experience that with your own characters. It's just weird. That's all.
And I think honestly, I think a lot of it is, not to be Spider-Man and accept all the responsibility for myself, but I think a lot of that's my fault. I think I probably should have jumped on earlier towards the end of Favorite and said, hey, this is what I want to do. Can we do this? Rather than like have you guys build up to jest. But at the time I hadn't even gotten my hands on the books yet. So I didn't know what they were. I didn't know if I was going to want to run them. But I think a lot of it has to do with the way that we sort of pulled this together at the last minute. And had we given it more time, it probably would have worked out a little bit better.
Sure.
But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I am super excited for it because just knowing a little bit about Dragon Heist and Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I'm just excited to get through the module because it's all really fucking cool. And the shit we get to fight as characters seems really fucking cool. And the things I know about the story, holy shit, man, I am almost as excited about this as I am EOS.
On the first level of fucking Dungeon of the Mad Mage, there is a fail point. There is a character can die just outright, and you can't bring them back.
Super excited about this.
There is no revivifying, and there are people that I could see falling for that trap. and while that's cool that someone can die right away, the potential for story there is just incredible.
Yeah.
And if you guys can think about this, the payoff for thinking about it is pretty significant.
Yep.
And the first level, it's a first level. That's level 5, and that doesn't even it doesn't even begin to talk about all the cool shit in there.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing, just so you know, and God, I actually really hope everybody's listening to this. I don't know. I have no idea if our D&D group listens to our podcast. I would hope they do, but if you don't, I guess that's fine, jerks. But if you are listening to this, man, I want you to understand that we're not just running a book module. You know what I mean? Trey is doing a shit ton of work to make jaw-dropping moments that aren't even in the book. And, they're going to be there. And I want you guys to be a part of it more than just an adventurer on looking an event that's happening in front of you. I want you to be the reason Jaws hit the floor. I want Haggis to have a story that maybe there's a reason our Jaws hit the floor when it comes to Haggis. Maybe he's not that type of character, but I want to be so more invested in Haggis than I already am. And Bryn and Cal and Gordon even and Dominus. I just want to be invested in these characters, but I can't be invested in them, and our DM can't be invested in them if you guys aren't invested in them. You know what I mean? Again, that sounds super guilt-ridden. I don't want this to sound guilt-ridden. I don't at all. I just want you. I would love to see you guys put a shit ton of time into your characters because, if the idea that we're just gonna drop this in a month, that's not going to happen. This is our Thursday sessions until EO starts, and then once EO,
unless the table's we don't want to do this anymore.
Sure, yes,
yeah, I'm never going to brute for. I want to do this, but I don't want to keep doing this if you guys don't want me to.
Sure, of course.
So at any point we can switch back to jest.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing a good job, or if you guys aren't having fun, I'm fine stepping down because I'd rather us be meeting at the table doing something that we're all compelled to do.
Sure.
Rather than just meet because Chris and I are passionate about it. That's just me.
I think we're pretty damn good storytellers, personally. I could be biased, but
It's hard though because I feel like if I were to sit here and say the things that we've talked about, on one hand I'd be spoiling it, but I think it would sell everyone.
Oh, 100.
That's the part that sucks.
The
Keeping a story secret for a year
sure,
is really,
exactly.
really hard.
It's extremely hard. The shit we talked about a night ago. Was it a night ago or 2 nights ago?
It was on Saturday night. I
Yeah,
think.
the shit we talked about Saturday night, that alone, I mean, if we were, it's just so fucking good.
It's so good.
It's so fucking good. And the moment it happens, I guarantee you y'all's jaws are going to drop. The moment it starts, y'all's jaws are just going to be like, what the fuck?
And even then, I don't think you guys are going to understand for quite a while.
Sure.
It'll be a very long time before you understand the full extent of what we talked about.
Yep.
It'll be quite a while. And when you guys do, you'll have like another moment of love for Waterdeep when you realize what we did.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I want you guys to I would love to see you guys be, and you may be, I may be reading the situation completely wrong, but I would love to see you guys be so much more invested as characters than it seems like everybody is. That's all. Because the sure, Waterdeep is a module and Dungeons of the Mad Mage is a module, but they're open. It's an open fucking book where we can do whatever the hell we want in it.
The thing about them as modules is that they allowed me the freedom to think outside of the small minutia.
Yeah.
Because what I get stuck on is the small shit. I get stuck on how the politics in a city work. I get stuck on what the currency is like. I get stuck on what organizations exist here. How do they get houses built in the city? I can't get past that. I have a really hard time with that. But me being able to pick up a module and have all that stuff written out for me and sort of a plot that I can push forward allowed me to start thinking about all the extra stuff outside the plot. It's why these are the reasons why Chris and I work well as a team, because the minutia doesn't hold Chris up.
Nope.
It's the the bigger story stuff sometimes that you get stuck on and you need a little bit of guidance to. Whereas for me, like the big story stuff is what I excel at. I just can't get past the minutia. That's why I never had a game where I playing pretend as a kid. I always played it in like the world of Star Wars or something because I understood the rules of those worlds and I didn't have to think about them.
Same. Yeah. I mean, I like I said it before, it's like when I was younger, the thing I did was I opened a fucking composite notebook and I wrote small little short stories of my own created Star Wars characters in the already existing Star Wars universe. And it's something that I love doing, and I loved working my character in next to Luke Skywalker and making it work. Does that make sense?
And that's the thing about you, Ev. Like, as much as we're sitting here, talking about how great we are as writers, the reality is that I think
you are too.
I think at the table, the best character writer that we have is you. And I think you're also a great actor, just naturally talented at it, and you can play off these characters really, really well. And I guess, one of the things that I talked about with Chris was that, like, in a lot of ways, because of just the kind of story that Rich was telling with Faerun, there wasn't a lot of potential for people to get the sort of payoff of the characters that they want. But because I'm figuring out an overriding narrative that very much isn't going to come into play until late game, there's a lot of freedom that I have to sort of give players the kind of payoff of the characters that they want, which is why there's that point, at the end of Dragon Heist, there is a point where everyone can change their characters. If we have to do a time skip to justify why all these people are part of the Watchmen, at the end of Dragon Heist, like we will make that happen, and people can change their characters. And that's not necessarily because I don't think your characters are good, but it's because like I hope by the end of Dragon Heist, I prove myself as a storyteller. And if someone has a better idea for a character that they want to see live in this world and see me mess with as a DM, like I want to give you the potential to make that change.
I agree.
Or you just go in Dungeons of the Mad Mage and your character dies because someone is going to die. Bleal was not my first death.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Bleal will not be my first death. Or my only death.
Oh, your only
That's
kill.
what I meant. See, I'm having another stroke.
Yeah,
It's
your
been an
only
hour.
kill.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think yes, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I hope by level 5, like if what you guys are looking for is like proof, hopefully it's given by level 5. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And and this may sound like guilt-ridden too, but I don't think anybody should have to prove anything to anybody. I think we should just go into this with an idea for what we want and have fun with it. And if it doesn't pan out, it's okay because it's just a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I just want everybody to have a ton of fun, and I want everybody to experience something incredible. I just don't feel like anybody has the idea that they're about to experience something incredible, which sucks. Because Trey putting a lot more time in than I am, but we are putting in pretty good amount of. We stayed up till 12:30 2 nights ago talking about how
we
this
did
can
last
work.
night, too.
Yeah, talking about how this stuff can work and how we can create a memorable experience where you guys walk away from the table going, "Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened." Or after level 20, we're talking about like, "Holy crap, what if Haggis gets into a fight with Cal? Like, who would win?" Like, you know, there's some weird dichotomy between you two where you end up being best friends and you talk about it as like, well, actually, who would win in a fight? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want that to happen. Because these are characters, these are people that we are playing. They're with somewhat of an extension of us. That's why I care about my character so much, because I've said this before. Every character I ever create is literally a part of me turned up to 11. Voss is that 1776 libertarian founding fathers fully believe in doing what they think is right, including maybe murdering and killing for what they know. I'm sorry, what they know is wrong to accomplish what they know is right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is the libertarian in me. Voss
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
turned up to 11.
Yeah.
You know, Arkin is the just complete and utter asshole that just wants ultimate power, me turned up to 11. You know, Mormont was that super analytical, logical, you know, I need facts, nothing but the facts. And that's how I move forward. You know, I think, therefore I am. That was me turned up to 11. You know, Balefire, the amount of just utter love I have for Whitney, that's Balefire. You know what I mean? Turned up to 11. That's like every single character I've ever made, and I'm never going to make a character that's not an extension of me. So I can't ever not care about my characters. I just want everybody to have that passion about their characters. I really do, man. I want everybody to have that passion about their characters, because whether you like it or not, you're not a drunk gambler, but Haggis is somewhat of an extension of you. And I just want you to be super fucking excited about where Haggis could go, because that's just going to make D&D sessions better. Because, you know, I think last week was kind of a thing. You know, people were like, well, this took too long. We didn't even get to combat. Everyone was talking. Blah, blah, blah. It was a little blah. It was a good session, but everybody left kind of like this. I don't want that to happen. And if we're excited about it and we're excited about our characters, good Lord, I sound like a fucking motivational speaker.
Well, I mean,
if we're excited about it and excited about our characters, then there's never going to be a bad D&D session.
We do have to end this because I do have some stuff I
Damn
need
it.
to go before stores close. But
Stores close at 9.
But I do have something to say off mic. Okay. If you guys love what we do, follow us on Twitter at Twinstick Radio or on Facebook at facebook.com/Twinstick Radio. Follow all of us on Twitter. I am at Darth Trey, Chris is at Short Change Hero, and Justin, when he is here, is at Justin T. Lopez. Send him a nice RIP. You know, try to scoop up some of his ashes at
It's
ZDTs.
DDTs in the parking lot.
Yeah.
There'll be a small little pile of the wind hasn't blown it away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
The show is produced and edited by Everett Jordan. Follow him on Twitter at the56th.
I don't really use Twitter anymore, so don't worry about
Well, still follow him there.
it. I'm transitioning to Instagram.
You're transitioning.
Yeah, 'cause
How do
I've
you
got an idea.
How do you transition
I
from
have an
social
idea
media?
for Instagram too.
How do you
Yeah.
transition from no social media to no social media?
Very easily by being a crippling introvert.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our theme song is by Connor Manning. Give him a follow on Twitter at Connor13, one and in Connor, 13 spelled out. Hire him to do your theme song at downstreamstudios.com. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Where
Bye.
we'll talk about more video games.
Promise.
Bye.